Hello and welcome to Briançon, France's highest city at 1,300 metres above sea level. Briançon lies at the confluence of the Durance and Guisan rivers and is home to 11,500 people who, on the whole, are a pretty healthy bunch. The city is legendary for being close to a vast amount of good climbing, hiking and skiing, but it's also a cultural centre of the surrounding region too. The streets of Briançon are narrow and the old buildings, fortifications and walls give the city centre an atmospheric feel, and if you find any spot here that enjoys a mountain view, it's likely to be a good one. Briançon has a wonderful climbing history and in recent times has become one of the IFSC's most famous and popular tour stops. To win in Briançon with a huge and passionate crowd cheering you on remains one of the sport's greatest prizes. Yes, and what a beautiful evening we have for it here in Briançon. Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley talking you through today's action in the semi-final. And Mike, could be a very interesting one. We're missing a lot of the big names, particularly from the Asian countries.
Yeah, the Asian Continental Championships happening very soon, and that, like you say, some of the big names missing. Let's have a little look at the list. Jane Kim missing in the women's competition alongside Akio Noguchi, Miho Nanaka, just to name three of the women missing. In the men's competition as well, Tomoe Narasaki, Kokura Fuji missing. Lots of Japanese here, but lots missing and lots of very important names missing. So it's going to be very interesting, and it's potentially opened a few doors.
And it's always fabulous to be here in Briançon. It's one of the great towns of the Alps. If you're ever in the Southern Alps, make sure you swing by. But this time it's not just been a lead World Cup. It's been a whole festival of climbing. On Wednesday night, we had the paraclimbing, which you watched from home. Yeah,
it was absolutely brilliant. In the living room, completely gripped. For me, I've been in World Championships in Paris when they had so many of the paraclimbings live there, and it's just some of the best sort of hairs on the back of your neck moments watching it, and it's fantastic to see it back on the live stream. We're very happy to be able to cover it as well, which is fantastic, and I absolutely love it, and hope to see more.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people calling to see more paraclimbing on the IFSC live stream, us included. So if you didn't catch it on Wednesday night, here's a quick recap of the action. A wonderful evening of paraclimbing in Briançon tonight saw the results of all 10 categories being decided in front of an enthusiastic crowd. Out first were the B2 women, and Abigail Robinson took the win in perfect style, topping the route when nobody else could. In men's AU2, Matt Phillips was rewarded for his committed and dynamic climbing with a World Cup win. We then had women RP2, and Hannah Baldwin took another gold medal for Britain. Men's RP1 saw Corbinian Frank put in an incredibly battling performance and claim a gold medal in return. Men's B1, Matteo Stefani almost topped the brutally physical route, but couldn't quite do it. Still won by 16 moves. Men's B2 saw Giulio Cennini win by the narrowest of margins, 21 to his compatriot Simone Salvagnini's 20 plus. Behnam Pelagi faced stiff competition in men's RP2, with 6 other finalists competing, and emerged on top to claim a gold medal. In men's AL2, Thierry Delahou was not to be denied and took gold in front of his home crowd. To round things off on the men's side, 55-year-old Alessandro Neri won men's RP3. Due to competitor numbers, women's RP3 merged with some amputee categories. It was Lucy Jarry who came out on top after a truly incredible battle on the route. In a highly likely event, this World Cup has sparked your interest in paraclimbing. Full rules, including definitions of all the categories, can be found in the 2018 IFSC rules. We're now just a couple of minutes away from the start here in Briançon. We are slightly ahead of schedule. We had a bit of bad weather earlier on. The officials were slightly worried it would carry on, and so the semi-final has been brought forward about 10 minutes. The women will actually be climbing first. For the first 2 or 3 minutes of the women's semi-final, they're going to be on their own on the wall, and then the men will join them. That's because the men are still finishing their observation, whereas the first few women are ready to climb. And Matt, we've got the women's start list on the screen. Very interesting, the qualifiers yesterday. Two very familiar names with two tops, and one increasingly impressive climber this year, not far behind.
Yep, Janja Garnbret, as always, up there at the top. Anak Verhoeven next to her. You can see them just coming up on the screen in a second. It's no surprises really to have those two at the top. It's good to see Anak back on form really. She has been struggling with an injury recently. She told us in quite a length of detail really about her elbow injury earlier, severe tendon problems in the elbow, and she's happy to compete, happy to continue, happy to take that into Arco, but it is a problem for her. Jessie Pills just behind those two. Jessie obviously the winner from Chamonix. I thought she looked absolutely staggering in terms of her fitness in Chamonix. It's great to see those top three there, and Hannah Schubert as well. Can never count her out.
No, finalist last time out in Chamonix, and achieved one of her climbing goals by making the final in Chamonix. Let's have a look at the men's starting list. Jakob Konechny climbing first again. Third place there, Jim Pope. A climber, you can basically claim all the credit for his success. I mean, you took him under your wing at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, I've got large wings, so maybe to cast a wide net over a few climbers. But no, Jim's climbs at the wall where I work and where I kind of grew up. He lives around the corner from us in London, and it's fantastic to see Jim making his way through. But he's got his work cut out tonight. Just look at that list. There's so many big names there.
A few interesting younger climbers as well. Sam Avazu from very strong climbing stock. And then climbing 8th, Sean Bailey, and 10th, Max Rudiger, who's had an excellent season already. Sean Bailey, of course, a silver medalist in bouldering in Vale 6 weeks ago. Bit lower down the order, first climber out after the cleaning break, which is midway through the semi-final, will be Sean McCall. Good to have him back in action. Sasha Lehman in 17th, looked really strong at times in the first two World Cups, and the familiar figure of Ramone climbing 19th. And then final 6 climbers, all very familiar names. Excellent day for Francesco Vetterata. Stefano Gisolfi climbing 24th, the winner from Chamonix, as is the female winner from Chamonix, Jessie Pilz. And the two climbers last out, Alexander Megos and Romain de Grange, very familiar names, albeit for slightly different reasons. Again, look very impressive in the qualifiers.
Yeah, those two were the only two to find two tops in the qualification round just this morning. Obviously, usually the semi-final is the next day after qualifiers, but today they are competing on 3 routes in the same day. Alex Megos and Romain de Grange were the two standout athletes. It was very close. Stefano Gisolfi and Jakob Schubert just behind those two. But I think it's those two at the top who are looking really, really on form. And great to see Alex Megos, who's just been away rock climbing between the rounds, looks on staggering form, putting up hard routes all over the place. And here he is climbing in front of us. We're really set for a great evening's entertainment in both the men's and the women's competition.
Yeah, in his typical relaxed style, Alex's preparation for the World Cup was going to Seus for 3 days and trying his new project.
Yeah, and just here in the arena, he's always joking with the MCs, he's joking with the crowd. Like when he topped his second route, chalking and blowing his hands, getting rid of some excess chalk when it was completely unnecessary, showboating effectively at the top of the route. And that's his style, that's how he deals with the pressure. Maybe he doesn't even feel pressure, I don't know. Alex Megos seems to be quite an incredible athlete, really. And just alongside him, Romain de Grange just won last year just in such great form, just as we cut to the start of the competition.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Romain gets on. I mean, he had the season of his life, age 35 last year, 36 this time, and his compatriot Camille Pouget is out on the wall. As I just mentioned, the women are going to start climbing maybe 2 or 3 minutes ahead of the men. The men who've just been observing, they had their observation just after the women, so they've gone back to the isolation warm-up zone. And as the first few climbers get ready, the women's semi-final will get underway. So Camille Pouget, the 16-year-old French climber, in front of her home crowd. We're at a new venue here in Briançon. We're on the other side of town. We're at the sports centre. And the new venue, I think if anything, is bigger than the old one and beginning to fill up nicely. And nice start for the French crowd to have one of their own out first. Yeah, and in front of Camille, she has around 40, we're trying to count with the route, so it's around 40 to 42 moves for both men and women. It's about right. It's about the right length after the qualification round. So the real challenge for these athletes today is the fact that this is their 3rd route of the day, and there's certainly not been easy routes going through the qualifying round. The route setters saying that they were a little bit surprised at some of the
kind of call them high points, but low points of some of the athletes actually going through into the semi-final round. So they have made a few tweaks between the rounds. They haven't had much time to do that, but we will see if that has much effect on the difficulty and how these routes pan out. See, 26 athletes got a long way to go in this semi-final round of entertainment.
35th last time out in Chamonix, Camille. That was her first World Cup, this her second. And she makes her first semi-final, and she's going pretty well so far. That big yellow triangular volume, the first real landmark on this women's semi-final route. The back colour of the whole wall here in Briançon is grey, so it can be occasionally difficult to tell the angle of the wall from straight on, but those yellow volumes really break it up and give it a bit more context. And I said there'd be a slight delay with the men. It was very brief indeed. Jakub Konečný for the second week running climbs first in the semi-finals. Wasn't far off qualifying from the finals last time out in Chamonix.
Yeah, so Jakub 42 moves, and both of these routes obviously similar in terms of the number of moves, but quite similar in terms of the style as well. See Camille here, we'll come back to that. She's just struggling a little bit with this lower section. She's into the steepest part of the wall. Don't have my protractor with me, but I believe it's around 50 degrees. Extremely steep, and the route set's just said it feels like a roof when you're up in there. It's so steep. See, she's just stalled out a little bit here and has a bit of trouble.
Well, this move's ideally done as a cross through, but is she looking for a different method?
Yeah, just recovered nicely there. Kind of got over the early kind of nerves a little bit there, I think, and the crowd got behind her just to pump her up through this next move. Big move out left, that was nice.
Yeah, as Mike said, the route setters did make some adjustments, particularly on the women's side. I think they perhaps slightly overdid the qualifiers, they felt, particularly on one of the routes, and were quite surprised by how tricky the climbers found it. So they have made some small changes to the semi-final route. As Camille cuts loose, tries to get her foot back on, but you can see how much work is involved. Needs to somehow get off the arms. If she can get that left foot onto something and get those hips in, she might be able to manufacture something of a rest. But that's such a tricky position to hold. Crowd are getting right behind her though. This is a great start. She's almost onto the head wall of the route. We mentioned the route setters earlier. They may be watching this slightly nervously.
Yeah, I agree, Charlie. I think that she has got the head wall in front of her and some quite good holds. And just as I say that, she does fly off. I mean, you never quite know when you've got the home crowd behind you. I think you can, she's 26 out, but I think you can really pull something a bit special out the bag. So we focus on Jakub into this really cool section in the men's route. So a bit of a dynamic section between these green fiberglass volumes. Nearly got the rope caught behind his arm there. And it's the first indicator of this men's route. Just going back to what I was saying earlier there, just say the route setters had really a short amount of time. That was what I was going to go on to say, is that not much time, but because they had the qualifiers this morning, unfortunately that's the end of Jakub. Not much time between the qualifiers and the semi-final, so they really didn't have time that they would normally have. Normally they have that evening and sometime the next morning to make the adjustments if necessary. But yeah, they're living life on the edge of their seats a little bit tonight, the route setters.
So one climber out on both the men's and the women's route. Jakub Konečný was first on the men's, and Camille Pouget with an excellent effort on the women's, which gives, I have to say, quite a lot of hope that we can see some real progress on that women's route. Mo Yoshimura climbing next on the women's route, and now Monchois of France climbing on the men's. So two French climbers out in the first four. And there is Mo Yoshimura, 21-year-old Japanese climber. Just going through a final observation. Climbers do get an individual observation time when they first arrive at the wall. They don't have to jump straight on. There you can see the belays from the PGHM. Always like to give them a shout out. The Peloton Gendarmerie de Haute Montagne. They are basically the mountain police. If you ever have a problem in the French mountains and someone comes to get you in a helicopter, it'll be one of those guys.
Yeah, hanging out of a helicopter in the morning, belaying for a World Cup semi-final in the afternoon. Not a bad job.
They can do it all.
I say I've actually been a volunteer belayer at a World Cup before for leading. It's absolutely terrifying. You
in case you fluff it.
You don't want to be the guy who doesn't give out enough rope. So you always see them giving a let's call it a dynamic belay, should we say, a pretty loose belay. They know what they're doing, obviously, so it's pretty safe, but it can be really terrifying and very stressful because you have to focus so hard to get it right, especially in the finals.
Mo Yoshimura, trouble-free up to the roof. Now Monchois, second climber onto the men's route. Conditions reasonable here in Briançon. It's not been as hot as yesterday by any means. It's been a pretty pleasant temperature, around the mid-20s in Celsius. Someone might let me know on social media what that is in Fahrenheit. I do apologise. Somewhere around the mid-20s. We had a heavy rainstorm that lasted about half an hour. About an hour ago. No moisture coming through the wall, but there's still a bit of humidity hanging round the venue.
Yeah, I really hope that this is...
And we lose Mo Yoshimura quite low down. Big slap up to that yellow volume.
I was just going to say, just on the weather, obviously being from Britain, we need to talk about the weather quite a lot. There is a real calm in the air at the moment. I hope that's not the calm before the storm, because there is some big clouds gathering off to our left-hand side.
I could only see out to the right and was feeling very optimistic, and now looked out to the left and feeling less so. Yeah, it feels like I'm saying this every year in Briançon, but they genuinely do get 300 days of sunshine. We just seem to hit the 65 rainy ones whenever we're here. Whenever I've been here on holiday, it's been nice and sunny, but it lasts very rarely for the World Cups. So now Monchois, 20-year-old French climber. They had a good day in the semi-finals, particularly on the men's side. 5 men through. France in their second home World Cup in the space of a week.
It's interesting, this section here, because this is that clip that he's just got is where the route really starts to kick in, and just how he saved that was incredible. That was heart in the mouth moment there for a second. As I say, that's where the route really starts to kick in, because the moves just sort of widen up a little bit. It kind of got to be a bit more physical, and he has actually managed to find a tasty little knee bar there, which he'll be quite happy with considering how close he was to falling off just there. And we just saw from the previous effort, Jakob, how close it is when he does jump out to that hold that he's currently resting on. The left hand needs to catch the hold where his knees are on, and you've got to make sure you don't get the rope caught in your arm in the process and sort of pull yourself off the wall.
Quite sensible climbing this one now, Monchois, because when you have a bit of a near miss like that, you need to reset yourself psychologically as well and kind of get back into your climbing flow. It's a bit like when you're driving and you have to slam on the brakes and you've got that funny feeling in the pit of your stomach for a few minutes afterwards. You've got to get rid of that and get back into your groove. So good policy to take your long rest. The problem is it's on such a steep section of the wall.
I do totally agree, and like you say, it is a steep section of the wall. The only problem with having a good rest is you can pretty much guarantee the next section is going to be really, really difficult. And we saw it in Chamonix. Some of the athletes, especially the Jesse Pills and Stefano, really making use of the rest and timing their climbing perfectly. I think it was seconds to left for Stefano when he clipped the final chain. It was absolutely incredible. But a lot of the skill of these athletes is the timing of their climb and the way that they time their rests, and sometimes that you have to do that thinking on the fly as well. You may think you're going to cruise through a section, all of a sudden you're having problems and you need to adjust your game plan.
Now Monchois just slapping onto the first holds on the head wall here in Briançon, so we can both routes looking very promising.
Yeah,
some really good efforts on them so far.
We'll see just later on. We might just be able to see. This is just into the knee bar section, but the hold that he fell off on slightly higher up, that was an incredible save actually.
I think he was intending to do that move. It happened perhaps a second earlier than he hoped.
Yeah, I think his foot just went, and like you say, it just had to think fast all of a sudden.
Very impressive reactions, but as I say, I'm sure he'd read the move before, but had to execute it somewhat in extremis. Here's Lučka Rakovic of Slovenia. As you would expect, very strong Slovenian representation in the semi-finals, particularly on the women's side. 5 women into the semi-final today. 26 men and 26 women. Didn't have any ties around the 26th place, as we sometimes see. So we've got the regulation 26 men and 26 women. Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley here in Briançon. Hashtag IFSCWC on Twitter if you want to get in touch. And if you are just tuning in, I know we are slightly ahead of schedule. We did start early for fear of bad weather. The organisers wanted to get the semi-finals underway as fast as possible, so we started about 10 minutes early. Don't worry, full replay available on YouTube if you want to go back and watch the first 2 climbers, which in the women's was Camille Pouget and Mo Yoshimura, and in the men's was Jakub Konechny and Nao Moshwa. So now just pulling onto the wall, bottom right of your screen, Jim Pope, Team GB.
Yeah, good to see Jim back in a World Cup semi-final. He's had a not the best start to his season by his standards. He made a few semi-finals last year, had a bit of a disaster in qualifiers in Villars at the start of the season, just fell off right at the bottom. I think the conditions there definitely didn't help, but now he seems to be back, found his stride a bit more in the qualifying round, but back to his strong usual self. Just see from the Slovenian climber on the main screen there at the moment just how strenuous this first section is on the women's route. It's pretty relentless all the way, so around 40 moves, so quite low on the spectrum of number of moves. A lot for you and I maybe, but for these guys that's a relatively short, quite direct route, and that means it has to be quite prolific, I would say. It's hard all the way, and you can see that. And what an awkward position she's in there for the clip. Really got to lean out here.
You've somehow got to find a way of getting clear of the wall so you can clip Luchka. She's an interesting climber, actually. Very much worth keeping an eye on. This isn't her World Cup debut, but it's not even her first semi-final. You might remember her from Kran last year in 2017 in November. But she comes here fresh from a win in the European Youth League Cup in Munich less than 2 weeks ago, and she's been having a really good season there. A couple of podiums as well, and a podium in the Youth A bouldering competition. So a real all-rounder, and yet another very strong Slovenian. And she's just set a new high point on this women's route, latched that first hold on the head wall. Really beginning to battle now though. These holds, after you've just come up off such a steep section of wall, are not what you want to see. They're sloping, they don't give you much of a rest, and we see her go up with the left hand and fall just as her waist hit the final change in angle on the wall.
And just as we see Jim Pope unfortunately falls off. He went for the double catch on the volumes. He probably had to do that due to his height. We saw the earlier 2 climbers being able to reach out to the right, but a full stretch. The route setters did say it was either going to be a full stretch then a catch. We saw that between the 2. Let's have another look, Charlie, then. So he jumps out to the right, commits to the double catch. So yeah, for me, he almost fired. He was almost too strong on that move. I think he built it up too much in his mind, potentially. Fired up, and his right hand almost went above the hold. You saw the fingers scrape down the volume, the chalk left behind. Unfortunate moment there for Jim Pope.
Yeah, he had to drop down onto it, whereas really you want to land and immediately solidify your position.
Well, I think being a double catch as well, that is absolutely right, because you've got to solidify the right hand for the left hand to kind of start coming into effect. And if your right hand's not doing what it's supposed to do, all of a sudden your left hand's nowhere to be seen, and you're out there.
So here's Sam Avazu, one of the stars of the Innsbruck Youth World Championships last year in September. Son of Cécile Avazu, the 2-time French national lead champion, which is not a bad tick, I suppose.
Yeah, not a bad mother either to have on your side.
Yeah, that is climbing DNA right there. And Sam, a really immensely promising all-rounder. Seeing him more and more in lead World Cups. His compatriot Nolwenn Berthier is climbing on the women's route. She's the 4th climber out. Sam is the 4th climber out in the men's, so it's 2 by 2 as it stands, and it's all France on the wall right now. Climbing very quickly through this lower section, Sam, really not messing around.
Yeah, you can see on his right foot there, actually, that's a dual texture volume. One I've not actually seen before myself. And yeah, it didn't have much boot rubber on it. You can see why, because he's had to just plant the foot and sail past. And this next section is really interesting. Like we said earlier, this is where it starts to ramp up. The snake hold out on the left with the pair of screw-ons as the pinch. And it starts to get really steep and really hard all of a sudden between this next section. And Sam's moving up now into the section that Jim Pope just fell off, so maybe he'll know that Jim fell off quite early due to the speed that he had to get himself ready and out onto the wall. Let's have a really good look at this next section then. What method will he choose? Quite a low percentage move. This is kind of the climber's worst nightmare, really. coming into a comfortable rest and then having to commit to a big move. Does go statically out to the right hand. This is nice. It's one of the most static methods we've seen so far. His foot does fall and surprisingly fell off. He looked in masses of control there, shakes his head. A real big surprise to see him fall off there. He looked great, really, to be honest. His right hand was settled. He was just trying to find the feet, and again it was the feet that went. We saw that with the first climber out, Jakob. It was the feet that blew, and the left hand couldn't do what it needed to do.
Yeah, be interested to see what method gets used on that, actually, because when the right hand landed, he looked incredibly solid, but perhaps realised he'd slightly overstretched himself, because then freeing up the left hand wasn't easy at all. Easy position to hold, difficult position to leave, it would seem. This is Nolan Berthier. Next out on the men's route be Romaric Geoffroy of France.
To see how Nolan gets on this section then. We just saw from the previous effort she got herself in quite a bit of trouble on this next volume, especially this next clip. Kind of found it really awkward. It's really due to the feet here that's causing the problems for the clip, but Nolan's in a better position here and looking quite relaxed.
Yeah, not an easy position to hold though. She's toe hooking a pretty small hole with her left foot. Not particularly comfortable, but as you say, it worked a treat. Romaric about to get underway, bottom right of the screen on the men's route. Men on the right hand side of the wall here in Briançon, women are on the left, and both routes curve away from the centre, so they start relatively close together and then gradually curve outwards towards the outside of the wall.
I'd say I really like this section on the women's route. It's quite funky the way that they're really on a ledge volume there in the middle of the wall. Huge yellow volume, but the moves off it are actually quite interesting. We saw 2 different sequences already, but I think Nolwen's sequence is nice. Get established onto the volume, roll over with the left hand to a Gaston, and then move up into this right hand that she's in, looking quite comfortable because she has got her feet on that volume.
Yeah, she doesn't, her face does not betray that she's feeling especially pumped, but if you're not feeling pumped before, you will now, because these holes are sloping, they're poor. Your feet are still well on the overhang. It's an uncomfortable position to hold, but now she pulls onto the head wall. She'll get the clip done. What can she do with that right foot to try and help her out in this next move, or will she just have to yard straight through? She manages to get it underneath her and slaps up with the right hand, and that's a new early high point.
Yeah, that was great climbing. She took the rest well, really used the opportunity to observe what was ahead of her, and you can see at that point the big move up and left just over the angle changes really starts to kick in. The feet are terrible at that point, frankly. They're just the footholds just totally disappear from you, and it's all of a sudden it's really tenuous on the upper body and especially the biceps through that section. So I think you've got to be a really powerful climber to enjoy the top of this route.
Romaric still just below the steepest section of the wall. He's just pulling onto it now, and he looks like he just needs to find his rhythm a bit. He's quite shaky, and he never looked like he quite got into that. You could see his legs shaking a bit from the effort. We were focusing on his compatriot, but it'd be interesting to see exactly what the problem was. Did he perhaps misread the lower section? Either way, never really looked like he got into that.
Well, for me, just watching the we've got first 5 men out in the semi-final round, I feel like nerves is playing a big picture here. This is a huge stage. Briançon is known for its climbing history, and to come out in a semi-final in Briançon is an amazing achievement itself. But for me, these guys look a little bit nervous, and I think some of the more experienced climbers won't be having such issues of kind of shaking, like you say, on the bottom. Jim Pope there just missed the timing move, same with Sam Avezou. You know, if they were doing these moves in the gym day to day, I think they really wouldn't struggle. Maybe the stage itself is just causing a few issues. Time will tell with that move, because there's a long way to go, and it you know, to be honest, it probably is a really hard move, but it's yeah, to me it just looks like they're a little bit nervous.
Tina Johnson Hafsas, no shortage of experience for her. But it's an interesting point you make, Mike. Interesting to know as well how much fatigue is playing a factor. We mentioned it, you mentioned it earlier. We've got, we had the qualifiers earlier on today. Normally we have the semi-finals on the same day as the final. Today we've got the qualifiers on the same day as the semis. So depending on where you climbed and when you climbed in the qualifiers, you could well have been either climbing, warming up, staying warm, or cooling down for 4 or 5 hours today already.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and it is a new venue here, and the isolation zone is a good 5 to 10 minutes walk from the field of play, from the competition wall, and it's actually quite tiring just sort of schlepping backwards and forwards all the time to the wall. They've had to do it twice this morning for the 2 routes. Now they've had to go away, rest, and yeah, I think it's tiredness, it's skin fatigue for sure, because it has been quite hot. It's a good temperature now, but skin is going to be an important factor, as Tina just managed to sort of piano match on those 2 holds there and works her way through this section. This is turning out to be quite a slow section in the women's route, which definitely gives you an indicator of its trickiness, shall we say.
Minoru Nakano of Japan, 33-year-old, is underway on the men's route, still relatively low down. He's not quite hit the angle change just yet. Tina Johnson, certainly a climber capable of making the final. Don't be fooled by her climbing quite so early in this women's semi-final. She had a decent day in the qualifiers, not her best, but don't be fooled, she can certainly make the final, more than capable, and especially, as Mike said at the top of the broadcast, with quite a few of the bigger name Asian climbers missing because they're back training for the upcoming Asian Championships. So we're missing Akiya Noguchi, we're missing Jane Kim, Mihona Naka. Over on the men's side, Tomoe Narasaki, Kokoro Fuji, Nohan Woo Kim.
Interesting method here. Straight away, Tina dropping into the right foot. We've not seen that as a method before. She does reassess though, and just catches the jug on the left hand. It was fingertips on the rounded edge of that hold. Does drop into the right heel hook now though. I thought she might have found a new method there. And it's really interesting. Women's start to the women's route, it seems to be very difficult at the bottom, and then just eases off for a few moves in the middle, and then starts to build again at the top. Personally, I quite like it. I think it's quite entertaining at the bottom, and then just that build up of anticipation through the rest before having it on the head wall, hopefully. That's the sequence through there. It's quite nice, just rolling through with the left arm up into the right, and then pausing and making a bit of a jump move up to the left hand. First pair of slopers up there. Just a bit of a struggle for the Japanese athlete on the bottom right of your screen. Does get through the jump, but had to pedal the legs pretty hard to stay on.
Tina Johnson up onto those slopers on the women's route. Minoru Nakano on the men's route, bottom right. Tina Johnson shaking out, just beginning to look tired. She slaps up again, and clearly that section is going to be the section that divides the climbers, it would seem. A lot of climbers successfully get in there, but the pump really kicks in when you hit those slopers.
Yeah, I think they're getting there successfully because of the rest below, but clearly the rest below is not giving them much back in the arms because they're falling off within a couple of moves after the rest. As the Japanese athletes, Minoru drops into the double knee bar. That will be pretty nice up there. I think he'll be happy in there, but you won't want to leave, as always, when you get into a really good rest. But time is always a factor.
The way these routes have been set, I wouldn't imagine time will be too much of a factor, but with only 6 minutes, you've got to keep on motoring.
Yeah, it's true. The same number of moves roughly on these routes as there were in qualifiers. There was no real time issues in qualifiers. Around 40 moves seems to be good. We usually see a number of extra moves on the finals. I think it was 57 moves we had here last year in the finals, so you can see the difference in number of moves and the amount of time it obviously takes to climb them, but it doesn't seem to, like you said, Charlie, it doesn't really seem like a route you need to rush on.
This is a really nice effort actually from Minoru, 6th climber out, and he's just approaching the head wall here in Briançon. Very, very pokey climbing, I would describe sections of this men's route as. Fiddly, small holds, slightly awkward positions like this one. You can see he's got a tiny crimp with his right hand. Christine Schranz is out of Team Austria on the women's route. She's climbing bottom right of the screen. You can see it silhouetted against the sky, which is currently an acceptable colour, but over to the left, if you were looking out from the wall, you'd be looking straight at it. There's a lot of black cloud appearing, so we'll see. So Minoru up onto the upper section, and as soon as the feet cut loose, you feared he couldn't hang on, and so it proved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a new high point as well, and you can see on that volume, I'm sure we'll get a lot more of that volume later on. There's an additional black screw-on being screwed onto the route just to bring down the level a little bit from the qualifying round. But that caused him a little bit of confusion there because it's kind of upside down. It's used as a bad finger hold with the thumb catch below it. When he moved up, he just tried to flip the hand and use it a bit more, and there wasn't really much on offer, unfortunately, but a good effort nonetheless.
So, previous World Cup finalist Christine Schranz, exceptionally consistent climber, doesn't miss many semi-finals at all, although she did miss out in Chamonix last week. First one she's missed for several years, but she's back in the semis here in Briançon. There's a close-up. Let's see. Can't get much closer to the action than that.
Great little cut loose move there as well. The wall's already close to 50-60 degrees, and then a big triangle on top of it as well. Good opportunity for the route setters to take the feet away and let the route setters, the athletes, demonstrate their power on these types of holds.
Hannes Puman of Sweden about to start on the men's route. We're on to our 6th woman, 7th male climber. So around a quarter of the way through this evening's semi-final, as ever, seems to be disappearing before our eyes. It's 10 to 8. But you can see the light really changing. Christine increasingly illuminated by the spotlight. Temperature does fall pretty quickly here in Briançon once night begins to fall, so you'd imagine conditions should improve as the evening goes on and that lingering humidity from the rainstorm earlier begins to disappear.
Christine doing that section really nicely, actually. A lot of flexibility through the hips there, and just the slightly longer legs have helped just to get that right foot established out onto the volume. Hopefully now she'll be able to mount up into this volume and kind of milk the rest for everything it's worth.
As one of the taller climbers though, the rest might not be as easy to find because there's just a lot more limb to fit into a small space. You've got to compress yourself to get that rest.
Yeah, it's a really sort of unconventional move, I'm going to kind of describe it as through here. It's quite unconventional, and the climbers seem to be struggling to find the right body positions through here. We saw this earlier, matching the lower hold. I think it was the first climber out, Camille, who actually did the same section. So we've got two methods currently working through the volumes here on the women's route on the left-hand side. As always with a lot of these routes, it is at a rest in the way that you can get weight onto your feet, but there's only usually one good handhold you can rest on at a time. You'll rarely see two good holds next to each other on a World Cup route.
So Christine is about to slap up there. The cameraman realises where she's going. And nice and smooth with the jump, very accurate, held the swing really nicely. Gets herself tucked in close to the wall again. The feet cut loose. You can just see a little grimace on her face there. She needs to find a way of getting those feet back on.
Awesome section here in the women's route, and you can see why all of a sudden the climbers start to struggle on this head wall, because they're cruising, they're on nice in-cut holds, they're on their feet, and all of a sudden the feet are gone and they're on big slopey pinches, and that just wrecks your arms instantly.
Really good view from the top of the wall looking down on that one. The wall here in Briançon is certainly not a permanent structure, it's a scaffold structure, so apologies on our wall mounted camera. When the climbers are moving, the whole wall shakes, so apologies if the if the wall mounted cameras get slightly shaky. It's because, as I say, the scaffolding is perfectly safe and perfectly solid, but it does have a bit of give. Yeah, good close up here of Hannes on that sort of 1-2 move through there. He actually got it statically, as a number of the athletes have with the right hand, and managed to establish both heels on that lower hold that he's currently foot swapping on nicely. And now I think he's just realised the thank God knee bar he's just dropped into it with the right knee. Yeah, he actually looks as comfortable as anyone we've seen resting there. Now Monchois took the longest rest, but Hannah's looking really comfortable resting there, but suddenly the beginning to look tired. Perhaps that's why he didn't take a longer rest, because he just didn't feel he could get anything back, and now he's going to start motoring. He's also been down in Seus climbing with Alex Megos, and by all accounts going very well. But he needs to get this clip done, and he needs to get off this steeper ground. He needs some sort of a let-up, but he's still got quite a few moves to go before he's going to get any sort of a break. Katarina Posch of Austria is on the wall now.
He's doing really well here, considering how close he was to slipping off one of those lower right-hand crimps. Sort of he's really had to tense up through this next section. This is getting close to where we saw Minoru come to, and Hannes Bhuman offers the sort of cross through Rose move there. That was nice, and he's relying a lot on a right toe hook here. I was going to say he might struggle to remove it, but does really well. Just pumped out a little bit there, but that was a good effort from Hannes. I think he'll be pretty happy with that. Not a high point, but good climbing overall, and a lot of kind of near misses that he managed to recover from.
So Katja Posch underway on the women's side of things. The USA's Sean Bailey, I mentioned him earlier, silver medalist in Vail in the Boulder World Cup 6 weeks ago, about to make his way onto the wall in what is considered his strongest discipline, lead, although as I say, his result in Vail might question that. Let's have a look at the latest scores. Still very early days, a third or so through this semi-final. France leading the way on the women's side, and Japan leading the way on the men's. Remember, 8 climbers in the men and 8 of the women through to the final, so we want the top 8. Very early days just yet.
Just realised just before getting onto this volume, there seems to be 2 methods through there on the women's route as well. Off the big red hole down on the left, there's a go again to the right hand side of that volume, or there's a sort of under wrap on the left hand corner. So it'll be interesting to watch out for that with the athletes of different sizes coming through that section. Katarina Posch looking very comfortable at this stage on the route though. It's a real mental challenge, this route as well, in terms of its route reading. Not only is it super physical, but it seems to be really hard to find your flow on these moves at the bottom as well, and it's only until you get to a bit of a break here that they seem to kind of relax into the route a touch. See the steepness that they're up against there. Always a good indicator how far the hair and the chalk bag's hanging back.
I'd be no use on that one. Well, I must have a chalk bag. Sean Bailey underway on the men's route. Katja Posch just entering this section where we saw her compatriot and fellow relatively tall climber Christine Schranz choosing not really to pause, because it's just, particularly for tall climbers, not an especially comfortable position. You've really got to compress yourself, and you're still on a 50-degree overhanging wall. So Katja Posch just decides to keep on motoring. Yeah,
she just struggled a little bit with the cross through there. You could see how hard she had to work crossing over to the left hand before getting into this half rest position here. There are 2 holds quite close together there, but the left hand is terrible. Does well there. That's one of the first times we've seen the foot kind of stay on a bit more than not. I've seen canvassing through this section in a couple of the early athletes, and this year is the real first separator move, firing up with the left hand. We've seen people double matching and hand matching on this next hold. Does really well and is fighting hard here.
Yeah, that's brilliant effort to match that hold. Now, if she can really get established on the head wall, we could see a very impressive high point here. She could do with getting her right foot out to the right, if at all possible, to try and bridge out, try and get something resembling a comfortable position, but she chooses to clip from what looks a relatively uncomfortable position, but it means it's done now and she can get on with motoring upwards. Keep an eye on Sean Bailey, bottom right of the screen, as we see Katja pop just a couple of moves over the lip. Yeah, really good effort, gave that one 100% and rewarded with a good score.
Yeah, really good score. I think that's going to be a new high point for her, just overtakes Nolwenn. But yeah, there, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this top section of the wall here. In the women's competition, we didn't quite get to see it from that angle, but there's a really tenuous section following where Katarina Posch just got to there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the moves higher up on both these routes as Sean Bailey just makes the most of this rest down below. This is what the route said is intended, a little match and rest before this next tricky section. Sean Bailey not fussed at all there, not even a flustered look in his face where other climbers have struggled.
Just to let you know, Hannes Bhuman did set a new high point on the men's route, 32 plus. Previous high point was 32 from Minoru Nakano. So awarded the plus, and he goes into first place, and all he can do now is join the rest of the crowd here in Briançon. Perhaps find a cold beverage and watch the rest of the semi-final. Katja Posch, 32 plus for her as well. So 32 plus coincidentally the high point on both the men's and the women's route, and Sean Bailey going pretty well here on the men's route. The next clip above him is the last one on the very steepest section of the wall. Above that, things ease off slightly.
I must say Sean's looking incredibly comfortable so far on this route. We have seen the athletes start to struggle on this section here. Hannes Puman relied a lot on the right hand toe hook there, and Sean Bailey's not needed at all. This is where Hannes fell off on this next move. I must say Sean's looking quite comfortable as he casually moves out on the right, onto the left, excuse me. So this is a really good start to the competition here for Sean.
Absolutely a man capable of making the finals, and you can't get much closer than that. Brilliant view looking down on Sean Bailey as he pulls onto the head wall, slaps up for the dual texture volume. He's got to be really careful to get the good bit of that volume. Slaps up again with the right hand, and I thought for a second he might just hold that. But he sets a new high point, and we're beginning to see the upper reaches of both of these routes.
Well, I think we're starting to see what Sean Bailey's capable of as well, leading further into the season. Absolutely brilliant there. He had bags of power left just as he turned the head wall, and I think it was a slight route reading error up there as he went the right hand to the really terrible section of that hold. He might have even been on the slippery bit of the slippery half of the hold, hit it with his right hand and just peeled off. Very, very slow death on that route, unfortunately, but it was a really, really good effort.
Suran Han of South Korea climbing now, her compatriot and regular finalist, podium placer and winner Jane Kim, not here, she's training for the Asian Championships. So Suran, the only Korean woman in the semi-final today, and only one man, Hyun Bin Min, who we've enjoyed seeing back in the World Cups this year. Masahiro Higuchi of Japan, 9th climber out, climbing on the men's route. Seon Han somehow held that, feet just popped. I think if that had been half a second earlier, she might have been in trouble, but she managed to stick it. Now drops the knee, gets the clip done, and she can carry on motoring up this steeper section.
You can just see her crimping the right hand there. There's a thumb catch available for her. And I think that thumb catch is there just to offer a bit more space for the right heel. Just focus back on there. There's a bit of a route reading mistake potentially, but she was obviously quite comfortable on the crimp down there on the right as she moves into this next tricky volume section. Really getting to know these routes now.
I'm sure her compatriots Jane Kim will be watching at home, cheering her on, and this is a good effort, as you say. A couple of slightly scary moments, but she is a bit shorter than the climbers we've seen before her. She might be able to manufacture something of a rest here, resting in slightly unconventional position. Her legs are out horizontally from her, so it's not the most relaxing of rest positions.
No, but she does have the double jog in her hand, which will really help, so she might find that position a bit more comfortable, and maybe this next section is, in her mind, it's looking really difficult due to the size of the hole. So I think if she's comfortable there, she'll make the most of that rest and then push on.
And you can see there, she's looking pretty calm and composed. Just trying to figure out what to do with that right foot. If you put it too far away, you throw yourself off balance and it's hard to keep it there. If you bring it too close, it's not enough. It's not providing enough help, and it's also then quite hard to rock onto it. She's just caught in two minds.
Absolutely desperate now. That's why she's making the most of the rest, I think, because she's a little bit stuck. She needs to get her right foot out there, and she's really struggling with the length to push the foot all the way out there. I think she needs to commit to taking the left foot off. Oh, does really well in the end. That was nice, and just manages to use the flexibility to get all the way across there, and that was a bit of a heart in the mouth moment there, just trying to find that foothold down on the volume, and opts for the cross-through method, which looks really powerful in the shoulders.
Definitely looks the more powerful way of doing that move, but got bags of power to spare, and she's got that final clip. The steepest section of the wall, and she can power up onto the head wall. Masahiro Higuchi is climbing on the men's route, bottom right of your screen, and we could do with just panning up a wee bit there, Mr. Cameraman, as we just lose her pulling onto the two slopers at the top.
Yeah, she just struggled a little bit there, just seemed to power out going through that rest section, then onto the volume, had to use a lot of energy through the core just to get the right foot out, and that really damaged kind of the fitness going into that next section. She did have the power to fire up on to the left hand side, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. And Charlie, rain coming down.
Yes, it is. That is bad news. Yeah, we've had beautiful weather since the VLAR qualifiers, really. I mean, every live stream we've had perfect blue sky. Here in Briançon we've been let down slightly by the weather. It's been a nice day. Yesterday was absolutely stunning, very hot, and we had a rain shower, as I say, about an hour before the start of the semi-final, and sadly it is back.
Masahiro won't be worrying about that now. He's nice and dry on the wall. Wall so steep it is protected at the top, so he has only one thing in his mind, and that's trying to find a top here and chasing down Sean Bailey, who just had an awesome 36 plus score to his name, really high up into the head wall. Around 40 moves, and Masahiro just fires up with the right hand and struggles, just pirouetted off the wall a little bit there, didn't hit the crimp quite cleanly enough. And the rain's really coming down now, people heading for the umbrellas at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, we've been provided with a very fetching Serge Chevalier Briançon gazebo. Thank you to the organisers. Could be a slight panic with the amount of electrical equipment surrounding us, but we're dry, and I think the wall will stay relatively dry. I mentioned earlier it's a scaffold structure. There is a roof on top, but the wall will soak if it rains hard enough for long enough. But I think for the semi-final, as long as the rain keeps coming straight down, I think the wall will stay long enough to conclude the semi-final. This is Helen Janicot of France on the wall now. She was actually part of the route setting team in Chamonix. She wasn't climbing, she was setting. Good to see her back on the right side of the route setter competitor divide.
Yeah, I personally think that getting route setting experience as an athlete is really key to your progression as a professional athlete, because you get that insider knowledge of how the route setters think, and effectively when you're training on these routes, when you're climbing in the competition, you are effectively just trying to figure out what was going through the route setter's mind at the time. So if you can get that inside experience, anybody out there listening, definitely say try and make friends with your local route setter. They're not all evil, horrible people, I promise.
Just most of them. So Helen established on the steepest section of the wall. Max Rudiger, who's had a brilliant 2018 so far. He's a climber more than capable of a big result. Made the final in Villars. Bad day in Chamonix a week ago, but he's back with another shot at it in Briançon. Medalist in Arco last year, so he's already been on a World Cup podium, let alone a final. And he's looked really, really strong, particularly in Villars a couple of weeks ago.
Helen Janicot just goes through that bottom section. She's looking really powerful at the moment. Say she missed one of the previous events, but it doesn't seem to have affected her fitness at all. Looking really confident today, all the way through the qualifying round. Just sort of had a bit of a swagger on around the venue. Just had that kind of competition positivity going on. Hopefully she can convert it into a high point here.
She's hanging from that last really good handhold, and then she'll begin hauling herself out to the right.
She's managed to rest with the right heel hook already in there. Saw the previous athletes who ran hand just struggling with that right foot, but Helen Janicot just shaking off the right hand a little bit there. She's obviously feeling good leading into this next section, but this next section is really where we start to divide the field.
Again, she jumps for the two slopers at the top. If you've been training endurance, now's the time to whip it out, because it gets pumpy very, very quickly here.
Really good use of a high left heel there. We've seen others struggle with low feet. Did really well. There extreme flexibility in the left hip to be able to work that left heel and really rock over to this next hold. Another 2.5 moves really to get to a new high point. Katarina Posch is currently at that position 32 plus. Just about to see the bottom of that second yellow triangle. That's what she's aiming for. 2 moves to get to that stage. Looking good so far, and obviously being in the French team, she's getting a lot of support here.
This is a brilliant effort from Helen Janicot, fresh back in the World Cups after a week of setting for them. And she definitely didn't leave anything on the wall there. Exhausted from battling her way up that women's route.
Yeah, that was good. I'm pretty sure that would be close to a high point, 32 plus at least. I think that we will double check the scores, but now we get to focus on the extremely strong Austrian Max Rudiger. It's where the previous athlete Masahiro fell off going up to this hold. Max is managing to find a rest there, double matching on the crimp.
Typically determined performance from Max. We just saw him puffing his cheeks there, betraying the effort involved, but it's still a few moves to go, but he's not far off getting off this change of angle. The old saying, a change is as good as a rest. He certainly won't get a rest, but he might get a change in a few more moves. He needs to cross through with the right hand now, or slap with the left.
Yeah, it's really hard to cross there due to the difficulty of the slopiness of that left hand, but I think the cross we saw from Sean Bailey with his high point 36 plus is the way. And Max Rudiger has fallen off there, unfortunately. I think, Charlie, you're right, the cross is going to be the way. We saw it from Sean, just making the most of that terrible black scrawl and just committing to the cross through so that your hand sequence is better leading into the next section. I think Max will be pretty disappointed with that.
IFSC of Austria climbing now. Again, another Austrian climber who's having a good 2018. Can you spot a theme here? You'd imagine they might have some amazing facility or something that they're training at. They seem to be doing really well.
Yeah, the facility's so amazing that all the other international athletes from other countries are heading that way and getting themselves some Airbnbs booked up in Innsbruck as well. And maybe that's good as well. They all train together, push each other, push the standards across the world. It's absolutely brilliant, and well done to those guys for building that venue.
We'll be in Innsbruck in September for the World Championships, 10-day climbing bonanza, paraclimbing featuring as well. We had the paraclimbing finals, no less than 10 categories condensed into about 2.5 hours of action on Wednesday evening. You can see the replay of that on YouTube and highlights as well, and qualification highlights. Taito Nakagami of Japan, the 19-year-old. A lot of the Japanese so-called big guns not here this time in Briançon because they're training for the Asian Championships. But they do seem to have a reasonably endless stream of incredibly talented, strong youngsters.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. Those top 10 aren't here, but let's just bring out the other top 10. This is never-ending amounts of talent. Ulifissa just struggled a little bit through the bottom section, ended up being a bit more dynamic than she might like. Therefore, she's taking a slightly longer rest.
Yeah, she could do with getting going and getting through this section as quick as she can, actually.
Just struggling to find the rhythm a little bit on this route. We've seen that a lot, though. Really, really stern section at the bottom of this route and quite difficult. No obvious kind of rests. Not many additional footholds as well, I have to add. And quite crimpy as well. So that will suit the female athletes through the bottom section, we would have thought. But then, as we've seen in the headward, it's all changing into the big slopey pinches.
So Julia about to go up to that decent jug. And I imagine she will attempt to engineer some kind of a rest. How long it will be, I'm not sure, because she used a lot of energy low down. But putting her hip flexibility to good use, she'll get the clip done. Takes a look down, I think, at the clock.
Yeah, just 2 minutes 33 on the clock. You can just see it in front of us, so got plenty of time. Just used over just half the time. Long way to go on this route though for her. Making the most of this rest, making the calculations in her head the whole time about the level of pump in the forearms against the amount of time that she has on the clock, and always trying to judge it as to when's the right time to move on. I'm sure lots of those climbers out there have been on tricky routes outside and always trying to make that calculation as to when to move and when to stay still.
And you can see now she's really beginning to fight. She's kind of had to slap for those 2 crimps, but she was accurate enough and had enough power to hang on to them. She's got 1 more crimp, and then she's got to launch for those slopers at the top. And now if she can get something out of her feet, it certainly makes this move a lot less committing. The feet do pop, but she hangs it.
You see Tina Johnson Hafsar's campusing that section. Just struggles to find the right-hand sloper. All of a sudden, as we said before, the pump really kicks in when you hit that first sloper. Your feet go, and you really have not got anything to dig into with the fingers. The forearm pump just explodes all of a sudden.
Taito Nakagami, we lose from just towards the top of the roof.
I have to put an early prediction here. I think Sean Bailey's 36 plus could be a really good score. Obviously got quite a long way to go. 26 athletes, we're down to climber number 12 coming out next. But 36 plus at the moment for me looks like a good score, and a wild stab in the dark. I think we might see a top or two.
So that's your way of saying, when you say it's a really good score, what you mean is, I think he'll make the final, but I don't want to say he'll make the final.
Yeah, there's a lot of fences around here, and I'm on top of most of them.
Onoe of Japan about to climb. Then it'll be Mathilde Becerra of France, Noen Arg also of France, and then we'll have the cleaning break after 13 climbers on the women's route. Taisei Homer of Japan about to climb on the men's route, and after him there'll be Hyun Bin Min, previous World Cup winner of course, and then the cleaning break on the men's route. So approaching half distance on the semi-final. Climbers coming in reverse order as always, so if you qualify first from the qualification earlier on today, then you climb last in the semi-final. So the theory is that the climbers are getting stronger and stronger as the semi-final goes by. Very rarely the case that you get the last 8 being the 8 eventual finalists, but the theory goes the climbers get stronger as the semi-final progresses. All Japan on the wall right now. We're used to seeing that in the bouldering, happening more and more in the lead as well.
And in your experience, Charlie, were you starting to see that in the speed as well?
Well, the Japanese climbers setting some pretty impressive times. Tomoe Narasaki's looking pretty handy on the speed wall. Akio Noguchi looking good on the speed wall as well. They've got a lot of, sorry to interrupt you, Mike, they've got a lot of very impressive young up-and-comers. We've seen Futaba Ito increasingly taking part in senior competitions. She's a true all-rounder. So, I mean, I think you'd still say they were strongest in the bouldering, followed by the lead, followed by the speed. But yeah, increasingly their athletes are all-rounders.
I think I saw earlier as well, Jane Kim, one of the superstars who's not here this weekend, has actually been on the speed training wall as well today, putting in some really impressive times as well. So everybody's getting involved.
Yeah, I saw Jane speed climbing in Villars and Chamonix in the qualifiers. I think it was in both World Cups she entered the speed. And yeah, certainly looked as if she was beginning to get that muscle memory and the familiar speed climbing moves.
Just Ayano looking really in a bit of a sticky situation here. She's really struggling to find the right sequence through the hands. The really high left foot is working for her now, but it was just pushing her back off the wall a little bit. And I think she might be a bit surprised by how difficult that section was to read. Kind of a pair of red holds just around the back of that hold, the volume down low by her left foot that we can't see. Terrible holds, and she's just got to kind of re-find her rhythm a little bit here through this next section. She's only 5 quick draws off the floor, used over 2.5 minutes already, so she's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it seems to have been a bit of a theme with a couple of climbers on this semi-final so far. They just haven't quite got into their rhythm, haven't quite got into the route, have never quite looked comfortable. Aya needs to find a way of composing herself and simultaneously getting a move on, because that's half her time elapsed. This section, you said it earlier, Mike, does encourage slightly quicker climbing, and we haven't had any climbers come too close to being timed out, but she could do with upping the pace for sure.
Yeah, she's heading into the rest with half her time used, but so far time really not a factor at all for any of the athletes. So I think she'll just be focusing on the difficulty ahead of her rather than the time, just trying to make the most of it.
Apologies there, part of the fencing surrounding our media area just fell over. Aya pushing through, spotlight illuminating on the wall. We're about 1 hour from sunset here in Briançon, but it's already beginning to get dark. The reins ease off slightly.
Aya really just fighting through that section of crimps there. Went for the left hand shoulder before heading up with the right hand. Really started to work really hard, and a really cool foot shuffle down on the volume through that lower section as well. Now she's onto the two slopers and loses the left foot. Goes for the campus, but realistically I think her arms were cooked by that point.
Perhaps burned a bit too much energy low down, but still, I mean, given the start where she just looked uncomfortable, she did exceptionally well to get as high as she did. We lose it, just that slap up for the left hold off the two slopers, which has become quite a regular spot for people to fall.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing there is that is an exceptionally hard move. Just as we focus on Tazo Homer here, he's crossed through really easily with the right hand to the left hand side of that volume. This is getting close to Sean Bailey's high point now. That'll be around 36. Sean Bailey had, Sean Bailey was a little bit higher actually. This is looking really good here from the Japanese athlete. He's starting to have an insight into the top of this route now, and just shakes off the left hand. Not sure if that's just a show of confidence, or if he's really getting pumped in the left arm now. Looking around this volume, new section of volumes here. A lot of these climbers won't be familiar at all. That'll be close to a 36 plus as well, joining Sean Bailey. So my prediction of 36 plus could be completely wrong.
Here's Mathilde Becerra, first of two French climbers in a row before the cleaning break. The route setting team clean the routes midway through the semi-final, which is after 13 climbers, and Mathilde Becerra, the 12th woman out. Hyun Bin Min, who's about to climb on the men's route, is the 13th man out, so men's cleaning break coming up, you would imagine, slightly sooner than the women's.
Yeah, just checked the scores, that was a 36 plus as well, joining Sean Bailey at the top of the scores at the moment in the men's competition. It's Helen Janico from France and Katarina Posch with 32 plus, currently leading the way in the women's route. But a long way to go, Charlie, still in this women's competition. I think we're going to see, we said it at the top of the show, Janja Garmer and Annick Verhoeven, only two climbers to qualify, topping both routes. I think they're definitely going to be scaring the top hold, some of these women, I think.
Yeah, I think the route setting team feel that the routes can certainly be topped by World Cup climbers. We've seen in the first half of this semi-final, we're approaching halfway, we've seen some very good efforts and certainly cause for optimism that we could see some tops. I think you're right though, I think Sean Bailey may well have done enough. You never learn, do you? We're still making predictions.
Adds to the fun.
Yeah, for everyone else. Here's Hyun Bin Min. A lot of people saying to me how much they've enjoyed having him back in the World Cups.
Yeah, great athlete to watch, really kind of wears his heart on his sleeve as well, and just goes out there for entertainment, it seems, more than just climb as hard as possible on the routes. Have a look at it, close-up look here at Mathilde, just through this section. It really seems to be a balance point that you've got to find with the body in the centre of mass on that volume, just getting the weight over the right foot and getting this really precarious lean out on the right hand. Seems a really tricky section, and they're not really willing to commit to the right hand as they move slowly through it, just as a fear of wobbling off backwards. But she does well though and goes into this next section kind of with a bit of power in the bank.
I was about to say looking very smooth, but she got herself in a bit of an awkward position there. Rope just looped around the back of her left heel. Something of a veteran, Mathilde, 27 years old.
Yeah, quick right foot slip there, but manages to recover it nicely, and a good angle there as to what they're up against on this right hand volume. I thought earlier there was a screw on there for the thumb catch, but it actually turns out that's going to be used for a foot later on. Some of the female athletes also seem to hold it as a pinch like that, and some going for the big crimp on the right hand, firing out on the left hand, losing the feet a number of times here. Do wonder if there's slight rain in the air, if there's not moisture on the wall, but there might be a little bit of damp in the air that can sometimes affect the shoes.
Yeah, in a way this rain's not a bad thing for levelling out the competition, because here in Briançon we are at 1,300 metres above sea level. The temperature can really begin to plummet as night begins to fall, and conditions would have got better and better on the wall. That shower, which appears to have stopped, has just returned a bit of humidity to the atmosphere, and it might level the playing field slightly. The athletes who are last out might not have the advantage they might have had if it was cold and crisp, as it often is in the evenings here. So hard to tell what conditions are currently like on the wall, but I suspect not much better than at the start of the semi-finals. We see Mathilde onto the crimps. These are the last crimps on the very steep section of the wall, and then those two increasingly familiar slopers just on the head wall. Now, what will the method be? If she can get something out of her feet when she jumps up, that will certainly save her some effort, but it seems almost inevitable that at some point heading up for those slopers, or when you're already on them, the feet do cut loose.
Yeah, opt for that go again method, and now she's just got to kind of load up and just commit to this next section and really up the speed through this top section.
Could just do with zooming out a little bit there, Mr. Cameraman. There we go. Slaps with the right hand. And now this move up with the left has caused a lot of problems. Was she lining it up with the right hand? No, she'll go with the. She will go with the right. I thought that was how she was shaping up to go.
I think just the way that her head was moving, you could tell that she was looking for something up there on the right hand side, and we're seeing a number of the female athletes dropping that section now, and it looks like that's going to be one of the main areas of separation, but a lot falling in a very similar position.
So Nolwenn Ark, the 13th climber, out, and Hyunbin Min, the 13th male climber, out.
Yeah, it's actually taken him quite a long time to get to this stage. He's really not finding his comfort through this section. Not feeling very comfortable at all. He managed to find this sort of shakeout. We saw Max Rudiger having that shakeout as well. Just a quick 1-2 on both hands, shake the forearms off, and then push into the next section. Good angle of what they're up against up there.
Yeah, just because of the position we're in, we can't actually see the men's clock. We can see the women's. We're just tucked around the corner. I don't think he'll be trouble for time, but you're right, he could do with getting a bit of a move on.
See the grit of the teeth there as he went for the clip, and sometimes on these routes, clipping the actual quick draws themselves almost is a move in its own right, rather than just clipping off a nice static position. You have to really grit his teeth there. We saw that a little bit in the women's final in Chamonix. One of the clips became one of the big moves of the route. Fires up for that. Pair of holds on the right hand side of that volume. The black screw on top and the thumb catch just fluffed it. Unfortunately, couldn't really find anything off that volume. I think he was pretty gassed by that point though.
So that's halfway in the men's semi-final. Where is the time disappearing, please? 13 climbers gone, 13 still to go. We'll have a cleaning break with the route setting team clean the routes. Meanwhile, Nolwenn Ark, the 13th female climber, is underway on the women's route. When we resume on the men's route, it will be the familiar figure of Sean McColl climbing, and Anne-Sophie Corre of Switzerland will be the 14th woman out. For now, all eyes on Nolwenn Ark, just approaching the very steepest section of the Briançon wall. So this section she's heading into now, we've seen climbs relatively quickly, and she's got here quite quickly as well, just over a minute of her time used up.
Gives us an opportunity to have a look at this next section. There's actually nothing on the bottom of that volume. She's just got to find the body position, move out to the right, and this is really sort of a really disconcerting position to be in for a lot of the climbers. They usually like to have something that they can really dig a crimp into at least, but just nothing on the volume. Just got to just really bring the breathing rate down and just focus just through that section to make sure you don't wobble off.
Yeah, we saw Iona is struggling on that section. Nolwenn Ark, no such worries. Looks slightly hesitant to commit. One of those moves that probably looks worse than it is. And now she's into the swing of things on the steep section.
Quite a lot of interesting body positions being displayed here on the women's route, actually, with these really big yellow volumes. You see them using the feet just to try and take the weight off the arms quite a lot, and that's 3 places that they can do that. Really tuck the hips in and try and just focus on trying to take a bit of a breather. It's quite an interesting, considering the steepness of the wall, just the use of volumes has really helped kind of break up the style of the route.
Commits out to the left and finds that really good jug. Will she choose to rest much? Reasonable amount of time left. She's used less than half her time to get here, but chooses, it would seem, not to pause at all. There is a potential for a possible rest there, but just completely ignores any thoughts of resting. She needs to remember the quick draw though, and now she does. Has she climbed too far away from it? No.
Yeah, I thought the way that she was just looking up there that she had forgotten about that quick draw, but showing great experience by just staying calm and just reading it perfectly. She knew that she was in a bit of trouble with that clip, but just moved through to a more comfortable position and just focused on climbing rather than clipping.
Slaps it with the left hand. Now she needs the right hand to join it, and then the move that we just saw Matilda Terra attempt with the right hand slapping up. We've seen most climbers attempt it with the left, but it's now been attempted both ways. What will she go for? I think she might be setting up to go with the right again, perhaps.
Yeah, this is where we saw Helen Janico go for the high left heel. Somehow she managed to get a heel next to her hand. Now she goes up with the left hand. Oh, keeps her feet on. Great body tension through the feet there. That was fantastic. Now brings up the left foot. That was a really impressive show of body tension through there on the feet. Struggling a little bit here though. She's sailed past the clip once again, but again she finds a more comfortable position that she's happy with to clip.
Getting plenty of encouragement, Noel Ark, and making a really good dent on this women's route.
Yeah, that's hold 32. If my calculations are correct, it's 32 plus that she's going for, so that will be a new high point because she has secured that right hand. It's just a really bad plate around the back of that volume. It's been ticked twice. Whether they expect her to move up. I'll be close to a 33 plus and a really good climb there. Will it be enough though? Long way to go.
Yeah, 13 climbers to go for the women, 13 climbers to go for the men. We now have a cleaning break that's already underway on the men's route, and it's about to get started on the women's route. So while that takes place, let's have a look at a chat I had earlier with Chamonix winner from last week, Jessie Pilz. Well, I'm here at the warm-up area behind the Briançon competition wall with World Cup winner Jessie Pilz. Are you getting used to that yet?
No, not really.
Does it feel different being here in Briançon? Has your mentality changed? Do you feel a bit less pressure? How does it feel to be a World Cup winner?
I thought I could climb more relaxed, but every competition starts from the beginning, and so you have to get the qualification safely. And yeah, so I was nervous as always.
And we just saw you were the first top of women's qualification Route 1. It seems like you're in the best form of your life right now.
I think there's still some
improvements to find?
Yeah.
And where can you find them, and what are they?
Yeah, I think after the 4 World Cups, I have 1 more month to train for the World Championships, and I will try to improve.
Everyone watching thinks that you're super strong right now, you're really fit. What do you feel you can improve? Where is the improvement?
I think I can improve on maximum power and on dynamic moves to do them faster and not hesitate too much.
And here in Briançon, do you have any hopes? Are you put yourself under any pressure, or just enjoy it as usual?
Yeah, I just try to enjoy and climb as high as I can.
All right, well, best of luck. And again, congratulations for last week.
Thanks.
Well, just looking across the wall here at Briançon, I think we've still got a few minutes of the cleaning break left. So let's have a look behind the scenes at the venue. Hello, welcome to isolation / the warm-up zone here in Briançon. This will be the isolation zone for the semi-finals and the finals. Right now we're midway through the qualifiers. It's just a warm-up zone so athletes, coaches can come and go as they want. Isolation rules don't apply. So that's the warm-up wall. Over here the climbers can get a drink, get some food. And here we've got the route demonstrations. So in the qualifiers, the climbers watch demonstrations of the route being climbed. As you can see, there's plenty of floor space. And out we come into the Briançon sunshine. So here we are at the wall. That is the walk the athletes will take. Apparently there is talk of possibly a shuttle bus, but as you've seen for yourself, it's not too taxing a walk. And before they appear on the stage, there is a final, very small warm-up wall here for the athletes. This wall gets a bit of sun, but fortunately the competition wall stays in the shade. So having done a final few moves here, a final bit of keeping warm, just getting to absolute peak performance, The athletes walk round and make their way onto the Briançon stage when we see them. Sadly, it's looking slightly more cloudy than it did when we filmed that feature, but the rain is holding off for now, and I believe we can see the current results. If you're just tuning in, by the way, Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley here, and we're halfway through the men's and the women's semi-final. The men are climbing on the right, the women on the left, and both routes are having their clean from the route setters, which happens halfway through the semi-final after 13 climbers. And there we see it. Nolwenn Ark, Ellen Jenico and Katja Posch all on 32 plus. Separated by count back to the qualifying results, but as it stands after 13 climbers, 4 French women in the top 5. Let's settle for that come the end of this evening. And you can see that Anne-Sophie Koller will be next out. Laura Gora Untra, always interesting to see how she gets on. Then the legend that is Mina Markovic climbing 17th. 19th, Salome Roman. We are in her hometown. She grew up in Briançon. 20th, the teenage sensation, Ashima Shirashi. And then increasingly familiar names, Manon Illy is having a fantastic season. Mia Krampel, always want to keep an eye out for Hannah Schubert, finalist from last time in Chamonix. Jessie Pilz, winner last time in Chamonix. And then the familiar figures of Anak Verhoeven and Janja Garnbret. And there we can see, we mentioned it earlier, Sean Bailey's 36 plus, looking increasingly impressive as time goes by. It was matched by Taisei Homer, who moves ahead in the rankings due to count back to the qualifying results. And then you can see Sam Avazo and Jim Pope. Interesting to see how they got on, but both of them came unstuck in that section with the green holds on the yellow volumes of the very steepest section of this Briançon wall. But Sean McCall will be out next. He's missed the last couple of World Cups through injury. He's back. Excited to see how he gets on. And then as we get further down the order, Marcello Bombardi, Ramonet, Domen Skoffic, Jakob Subert, Stefano Gisolfi, Romain Desgrange, World Cup winners all. And Alex Megos, still not a World Cup winner, but still a pretty handy climber. He'll be out 25th.
Here we go then with Sean McCall, and what a perfect place to come out. After a cleaning break, I think psychologically for the climbers, that's always a good time to come out halfway through the field. I think he'll be pleased with that. The build-up of chalk is being cleaned off by the route-setting team, and you can see there not only the crowd, but how focused Sean McCall is on this job in hand.
He just gives the crowd a quick wave. Just as you were saying how focused he was, he turns around and waves, almost like he could hear us. But now he's underway with the crowd really building up here in Briançon. We can't actually see most of the crowd from our position. I got a bit of a shock when I saw just how many people are in the venue. I mentioned it earlier, we're in a new venue this year. If it looks unfamiliar compared to the last few Briançon World Cups, we are in a new venue in the Sports Centre. We're next to a 400-metre track, and basically the crowd are on a rugby pitch, and it looks pretty full.
See, Sean McCall just used his trademark dynamic style just off the ground there. Instantly had to slow it down. He sort of jumped off the floor, missed the second foothold, but instantly had to dial it back in due to the technicality of this next section. He really just had to change his tactics all of a sudden there. And so sometimes with Sean, he really comes out full of energy and full of fire, and you can see that here this weekend. Really, I think today you could just see him between the routes. He just seems to have laser focus all day. I think he really wants it here in Briançon. He made the finals last year, and he definitely wants to be able to be back there tomorrow night.
Yeah, put on a brilliant show last time out in Briançon. To be honest, I remember his haircut got a lot of comments last time, but it's gone pretty straightforward this time. Yeah, good to have him back in the World Cups, one of the true legends of the sport, multiple discipline World Cup winner.
Yeah, just having a little feel around that right hand volume. I've seen a lot of the other guys just have it as a shoulder hold, as a Gaston on the right hand side, but he opts for the pinch, and there's a lot of terrible footholds and terrible screw-ons on this route in the men's category.
Just to let you know, the cleaning break has finished on the women's route. The route has been cleaned and is available for business again, and Anne-Sophie Koller is a minute or so away from beginning her attempt.
Let's have a look at Sean McCall and this next tricky section. The first bit of real resistance on the route. Seen a number of climbers seem a little bit nervous heading into this section, and Sean McCall looks really fired up for this, so let's see how he gets on. Looks around for his options. You can see the head moving really quickly right to left just to size it all up, and Sean McCall, we've seen this from him before, goes feet first and finds himself in all sorts of tangle positions, but he always just goes out there and just tries to see what works, just feel it out on the wall. Opts for a bizarre sequence of leg moves, but somehow untangles himself and carries on into the next section, but doesn't in that process find the rest that other climbers have found. And let's see if that affects him into this next section.
Yeah, he also got his leg caught around the rope, which, whilst it shouldn't affect him physically, it's slightly distracting. It's something to think about that isn't the route, but it didn't seem to bother him too much. He can get underway. He's got some pretty decent holds coming up. You can see Anne-Sophie Collet there, I've just mentioned. She's out onto the stage in Briançon, so we're into the second half of both the men's and the women's semi-finals. Sean looking pretty solid here. Doesn't look like a man that's not been in a lead World Cup for, what must be, 8 months. Yeah,
he looks solid so far, but I think he's found that lower section pretty stressful, so it's going to be really interesting to see what his fitness, where his level is after such a long break. Has he just been training and getting super fit, or is he a bit out of touch? Let's see.
I think he's trying to take something of a rest here. Doesn't look the most comfortable position to clip from. You can just see him straining slightly there, but he gets the clip done. It means he can concentrate on the climbing for a while now. He's got quite a lot of moves before he needs to worry about clipping again. Through that tricky section of white volumes with green and black screw-ons. And again, just needs to get his head clear of the rope.
So let's see if he goes for the cross or the go again with the left hand. Does opt for the cross. Great close up there, nearly missed it. For those diehards out there, you see Sean McCall at a very famous cross-through move in Briançon final last year, in this similar point on the wall, and drops it there.
Just pulling onto the head wall. Looks like he enjoyed himself, Sean. He's you would imagine reasonably happy, a solid qualifying performance, top half of the semi-finals, and then a pretty good effort in the semi as well.
Yeah, it will be a score lower than what we've got there at the moment. With Sean Bailey, with his score 36 plus. So I don't know, I felt like Sean had a lot more to give there. So does Anne-Sophie Collet. Is that section that we've been talking about finding the right body position and being really insecure, and it was Anne-Sophie Collet just wobbled off there, just went to lead out to the right hand volume. Maybe we can see that again. Just went past the tipping point of no return and missed the next hold.
That's a real disappointment for Anne-Sophie Collet. She's looked good in the qualifiers this morning, qualified well. We lose her early on. We'll just confirm Sean McCall's score as and when it comes through. That's Tommy Johan.
So another
so
look
this, yeah, this is Anne-Sophie Collet.
Yeah, let's have a look. So she just went, it's interesting. We saw that move only used once before, that method. The go again with the right hand rather than matching and pushing your body underneath the volume. Went for the big stretch, and it was one stretch too far. She hit the hole, but she lost the left hand, just got overstretched, the fingers opened up, couldn't crimp down on the holds anymore, and she'll be ruining a potential slight route reading mistake there, although that method has worked with some of the taller athletes. Interesting section on the women's route, that I quite like it. It's a number of ways of doing the same move.
Laura Agora will be climbing next. Very exciting young climber we saw in a series of finals last year. Real promising up and comer, and another real all-rounder. Yeah, just to confirm, 33 plus for Sean McCall. That puts him in third place as it stands. We do have a series of ties in the men's competition, particularly with those, most notably with those top two, Romain Desgranges and Alex Megos. The route setters will be keen to separate them. Separation's something that the route setters always aim for. We don't want big ties, we don't want more than 8 people going through to the final. And we are just post the climbing break. Mike, you're professional route setter. A lot of people watching this might think, well, I go down the gym and the holes don't get clean from one, I might say one day, might be 1 week to the next. How much of a difference does it make to the quality of the hold?
Well, it depends on two things. One is the style of the route, getting into that position. Like certain sections of the route, you have a big chalk build up like this section, and it also depends massively on the material that's used for the holds. If it's, without going into too many details, there's plastic holds and there's resin holds. A lot of these holds here will be polyester resin, and the chalk build up is not quite so vital to the conditions. Nice double knee bar there. Some of the polyurethane holds just seem to sort of suck up the chalk a bit more, but generally I think it does make a difference. You have to be honest, it does make a difference, and climbing after the cleaning break I feel would be a good position to be in. But overall it's actually compared to at the gym day to day, there's a really tiny number of hands and bits of chalk going through these holds, so it's not completely friction dependent. Realistically the best climber will win, not the one with the cleanest holds.
Thomas Johan putting on a good show here. Took both hands off a couple of times, but I think you could tell how much strain that was putting on him, because even though he's clearly got the opportunity for a no hands rest, he's choosing to keep one hand on. Perhaps the knee bar not quite as solid as he might initially have made it look. Laura Gora absolutely flying on the women's route. Only 2.5 minutes gone. She's approaching the top of the head wall. Thomas Johan getting a cheer by the crowd, being egged on by the venue MC.
It's quite interesting here from Tom. He sort of took that rest, took a really big rest, and then came flying out the box from the rest, and that is a really good tactic, to take the rest. We saw that with Stefano Gasolfi in Chamonix, just take the rest and then steam through the next section as fast as physically possible. Obviously not competing here, but will be competing in Arco. Hopefully Adam Ondra is really known for that technique. Take the rest when you've got them, but then absolutely fly until you get to the next rest.
So Thomas Johan looking pretty solid here. You can see the walls shaking, our camera's shaking as he comes towards it. Really beginning to work hard. Chooses to get the clip done early, which looked like a good tactic because he got it done quickly as well as early. Now he'll slap for the top, holds it. Thomas Johan getting the Briançon crowd really fired up, now moving out right. This is a new high point. Can we see a top? He needs to stab his foot out right. There's no way he can commit to those slopers above until he gets his feet sorted. And you could see he was getting tired. But a fantastic effort, and Laura Gora simultaneously doing really well on this women's route. Not quite matching the high point just yet, but getting very close to it. You can see the top there. The women's route goes out left, the men's route go out right. Again, a bit like we just saw with Thomas, needs to find a way to stab that right foot out. She slaps the right hand out, and we lose her midway up the head wall. Laura Gora, winner of 3 of the 4 Youth Lead World Cups, European Youth Cups so far this season, and second in the other one is on the senior stage. Two poor finishes by her high standards in Chamonix and Villars, 41st and 48th. That was much more like it.
It's interesting, just focusing back on the men's route there for a second. From what I've just had a look round to the corner there, it's 4, potentially 5 moves away from the top there. Thomas' performance on that was absolutely awesome, but with a lot of big names to come, I think we could be seeing some tops here. Hopefully not too many. There's a couple of staggeringly difficult moves to finish, with a very big chuck to the finish hold also in store for them. So it's going to be interesting. But that was a really good insight into what's going on at the top of the wall there.
Yuki Hado about to climb. There he is on the men's route. Vita Lukan of Slovenia, only the second of 5 Slovenians to come this evening on the women's side of things. She'll be followed by her compatriot Mina Markovic, and then later on we've got Mia Krampel, and climbing last in her familiar slot, Janja Garnbret.
32 plus is the score to beat. As you can see across your screen there at the moment, 4 athletes on that move at the moment. I thought Noel Winark might have been given an extra point or 2 for that section through there, but judges deemed it 32 plus, fair enough. But it is 32 plus that's going to be to beat at the moment.
Thomas Johan's high point was hold 39. That puts him clean in the lead ahead of Taisei Homer, Sean Bailey on 36 plus, and Sean McCall in 4th place as it stands on 33 plus. really getting to the business end of this semi-final. Third lead World Cup in the space of 3 weeks, and we've got a fourth one in the space of 4 weeks in Arco next weekend, so it's a busy time for the competitors.
Yeah, Yuki Hara just had a bit of a route reading error there. We've seen a lot of people matching that right hand hold that he's got his right foot on at the moment, but he seemed to have the strength just to pull up and left and then drop back down to that right hold, and to use a lot of power in the process. So hopefully that's not going to hurt him later on into the route, but struggling a little bit just at the bottom of the wall here.
Both climbers pretty much the same height on the wall, and climbing, it would seem, exactly the same route, seemingly mirroring each other's movements for a few moves there. But Yuki Hara now entering this section of volumes where we lost Jim Pope earlier on. There's a couple of different ways of dealing with it, and as we saw from Tom Yuan, there is a no hand rest if you can engineer it and if you trust your knee bar enough.
Yes, the legs everywhere method from Sean McCall as well, which I particularly liked. There's all sorts of methods through that section.
Vita Lucan going well over on the women's route. You can see a bottom right of your screen and top left of your screen.
Yuki Hara just making the most of that rest, and some impressive action in the background. It's a great shot seeing climbers side by side there. See how Yuki gets on with this move. It was really nice with the right heel hook, just tucks it in nicely there, not a stress at all through that move. I mentioned he had a little bit of difficulty down low, but he really seems to have regained his composure there going into this next section, opting not to rest at all and just keeping up the kind of consistent pace that he's had in the route so far.
Vita Lucan on the bottom right of your screen, approaching the top of the head wall on the women's route. Made her first final in her home country in Cran last autumn, and she's felt like she's been close to a final this year as well. She was very close in Villars, 9th place, and then 11th in Chamonix last time out. So Yuki swings out right, and Vita Lucan simultaneously at one of the key point on the women's routes. Hard to know who to keep your eye on here. Vita Lucan slapping up with the left hand.
Yeah, does well with a high heel hook there. We've only seen that work successfully once so far, maybe twice. Just bumping into this next section now.
And she's suddenly regained quite a lot of composure after those really physical moves onto the head wall. And Yuki Hara's chalking up on one of the worst holds on the route. Now he gets underway again. So both climbers approaching the real meat of these routes. Vita Lucan looking pretty solid on the women's route. Crosses through as we use Yuki on those two green volumes, and we simultaneously lose Vita Lucan.
Yuki did really well there. It just seemed to be, he seemed to go from sort of 10-15% pumped to 90% pumped in pretty much one hold there. As soon as he hit that top plate with the right hand, you can see the elbow raising and the wrist just starting to open up a little bit, a sure sign that the forearms are completely gassed, and couldn't make the next move and couldn't match Thomas' score of 39. That currently is looking like a really good score with just 4 or 5 moves to the top of the wall.
So next out will be Sasha Lehmann and Mina Markovic. Sasha Lehmann in the final last time out in Chamonix. You may remember in the semi-final he was absolutely furious with himself, climbed quite early in the semi-final, was sure he hadn't made the final, looked absolutely distraught, and then as the semi-final progressed his score looked increasingly impressive, and it ended up netting him a place in the final.
That mentality of keeping going when you think it's not potentially going well is so critical in competition, especially when you've got another round to come as well. Never give up on a semi-final round. We saw it with Janja Garnbret last week, actually seemingly dropping off in the semi-final round, and that was a really interesting mentality. She felt like she'd done enough, so she dropped off, tried to save some energy for the final, but generally speaking you see the climbers just going all the way as hard as they possibly can, just in case there's some sort of issue with countback in the next round. And as you said, it may not be quite as bad as you think.
Yeah, Sasha Lehmann, a good example of that. Here is a legend of the game, 4 overall World Cup titles, Mina Markovic. Climbing on the main screen, Sasha Lehmann, bottom right.
Mina with that style of hers of just really locking down the holds, really happy on the small holds, known for her crimping ability. So personally I think if she can get the route reading right on this route, she'd be quite happy on this set of holds that the route setters have applied for the women's semi-final.
Well, that's been one of the problems with Mina in the past few seasons. It seemed like some routes she's pulled on and really struggled to read them, really struggled to find any rhythm, and then at other times she's looked at her absolutely wonderful best. But often you don't know until she pulls onto the wall which one you're going to get.
Yeah, I just saw her walking back to the isolation after one of the qualifying routes, having a bit of a shouting match with her coach, just kind of a bit furious after not too happy with how she climbed and how she performed, but I hope she's managed to switch that around and put it to good use on here. Use the fury to climb hard and put the power down on the wall instead with the coach. Great to see that passion though, I think, after the qualifiers. You're just leaving everything you've got on the wall, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, there was talk of retirement from Mina Markovic. Not just talk, she was retired, but then had a bit of a rethink, and I think any talk of retirement's gone for a while now.
Do you think that's an Olympic dream?
She doesn't give much away, Mina. I could ask, but I don't think I'd get the answer. She's looking strong here. As I mentioned earlier, we've sometimes seen her not reading routes well, not seemingly in the right headspace, but she seems to be going well on this Briançon semi-final. If you're just joining us, Charlie Bosco and Mike Langley here, live in Briançon. It's 5 to 9 at night. Darkness just beginning to fall. We've had a couple of rain showers, but it's dry now, and conditions reasonably good. A breeze just picked up, and Mina Markovic, legend of the game, is making her way onto the head wall of the women's route.
Sasha Lehmann using that confidence from Chamonix to good use and pulling through that bottom section of the men's, the tricky dyno section onto the fiberglass volumes. No issues for him into that, and he's just going to take a good rest, which means we get to focus on this really, really hard section for Mina here. Just got to commit now, just got to bump up into that next section of holds and start to put the power down in the top wall. Just so he gets a little bit stretched across the shoulder there. Straight arms, it's really hard to get out of position into a new position, really start to bend the arms on these big slopers. Does it well though, feet go again, but she had the left hand secure before she got into any sort of trouble there.
Yeah, Mina known for her hard training, and it paid off there. That move looks absolutely impossible for some of the world's best climbers, and she slapped that left hand and then chalked up off it. Looking really strong here, Mina Markovic. She'd be a popular finalist, a knowledgeable crowd here in Briançon, and they love to see the legends in action. Mina Markovic could well be climbing herself into the final, looking really strong here. I think opting to rest. She's climbed for 3 minutes and 50 seconds, so time almost certainly not going to be an issue as she slaps up with the left hand. And it was the next move that was the issue.
Yeah, I think she just struggled to find the body position here. She was obviously super pumped, but that is the position, but we've seen a number of climbers fall off now, all in the same spot.
Here's Sasha Lehmann, looking really, really strong, slapping up with the left hand. He just about held it. The hips began to peel away from the wall, but he had just enough core tension. Slaps again with the right hand, and I think that was everything he had to give. Brilliant effort from Sasha Lehmann. Bring your scores as they come through.
Yeah, it's Vita Lucan leading the way at the minute. Climber just before Mina Markovic there with a score of 35. Toma in the men's category 39 on the board also for him. And we've just having a look at the rope there, Charlie. That looks like a slight disaster.
That is not ideal because there's still a knot left in the rope. Mina Markovic didn't finish untying, and the belayer began to pull it through, and if he pulls it through with a knot still on it, it will get jammed in a quick draw and we'll have a rope stuck on the route.
What we need is a big stick.
And I believe that we've got a big stick or an umbrella.
Yeah.
There we go.
Big crowd for the cheer. I think Marcello thought that was for him.
No,
he deserves a cheer, to be fair.
He does deserve a cheer, but it was actually for the big yellow umbrella. So there we go. Always completely untie your knot. Mina wouldn't have won herself many friends if that had got jammed in a quick draw. Winner from Chamonix in 2017, Marcello Bombardi. Natsumi Hirano climbing on the women's route. Good opportunity to see some of the Japanese climbers we don't see quite so often, with some of their big guns missing.
Yeah, speaking of big guns, Marcello Bombardi, the way that he won that competition in Chamonix last season was really impressive, and he seemed to carry that confidence through for a number of the following events, but just sort of dropped off the radar a little bit by that winning standard at least. And hopefully he can put those big guns to use. He's definitely one of the bigger athletes in the men's competition.
If he says it's Tuesday, that's for sure. Big guy Marcello Bombardi, and a brilliant climber too. One of the best moments of last season when he won in Chamonix, almost seemingly from nowhere. If you've watched a lot of climbing, you knew he was a talented climber, but just had one of those days where everything came together for him.
I think that's one of the elements I find really fascinating about competition climbing at this level, is you never quite know who's going to be there in that final group. It really just, it's a big question mark, especially currently in the men's competition. In the women's, you've got a number of competitors, Janja, Anak, Jessie Peels, who are always there, but some slots still opening up. Potential lists for the finals is still up for grabs as well, for sure.
So Marcello just make his way onto the steepest section of the wall, and that familiar snake-like hold they'll go out left with and pinch. Needs to get the clip done.
I think this extra steep wall is really going to suit Marcello's style of at home in the steepness. Put those biceps to good use, especially on these big undercut volumes.
Interesting to see what the method will be through here. Will he attempt any sort of knee bar? Has he spotted the knee bar? Or will he just keep on motoring?
That knee bar has been quite interesting. Certain climbers just choosing not to use it at all, either because they've not spotted it, or I'll just keep my eye on the climber, Natsumi in the background there. Thought she might have been off there, but just saying that some climbers opting to use it and some not, and that's just seemed to be their preferred style. It is Natsumi who goes, unfortunately, just trying to get a right leg out to that volume. Not the best semi-final for her. Maybe missing some of her fellow athletes, and lose Marcello from that section. That is a big surprise and a big upset. Interesting to see exactly what happened there. We're just focusing in the background at Natsumi. Marcello looking really frustrated, as he would be, barely even warmed up on the route, and he's already off.
Next out will be the legend Ramonet on the men's side of things, and Salomé Romain, the Briançonnaise climber. Easy for me to say.
Better than Briançon, which some English people pronounce it. Interesting to see Salomé coming out with the towel on a harness. I think that will be, there we go, just to put down. There might be a bit of moisture carried through from the isolation zone, the warm-up zones from that earlier rain, but sensibly coming out to make sure that the shoes are perfectly dry before she pulls onto the wall, leaving nothing to chance here.
So Vita Lucan still with the high point, 35 for her. And over on the men's side, Thomas Yuan with the high point on their side of things. So Ramonet, the 8th to last climber out. So after him, we will have confirmed finalists. Salomé and Ramonet both still pretty low down on their routes. Conditions, you'd imagine, improving now. A real breeze picked up, and suddenly the temperature seems to have dropped quite significantly.
Yep, got shorts on here in the commentary booth, dancing around a little bit to try and keep warm, so the temperature has definitely dropped a touch, and like you say, there's a nice wind blowing basically directly at the wall. So I think the competitors will be pretty happy about that, assuming that they can stay warm enough in the isolation zone.
Yeah, if you been watching all the way through, you'll have seen during the cleaning break when I went for a look around the isolation zone. And it is inside, but it has a huge double doors that open out, and it's not especially warm, but they should be able to stay just about warm enough. But then they've got a bit of a pause behind the wall as well, where again there's another small warm-up area, a keeping warm area. But
well, that area was the staying hot area this morning. The sun was beating directly down on it. It must have been close to 30 degrees in there, where they were trying to, as you say, stay warm. So really tenuous. It's really quite hard to watch that section. Salome Roman there just wobbling through into that next screw and just keeps her head really nicely.
Ramone going well. You can see him bottom right of your screen on both the mini screen and the main one. There's both climbers again at the same height on the wall, and again the 19th climber in both the men's and the women's. So it's 2 by 2 still, and after these two climbers we will have a couple of confirmed finalists.
See how Ramon gets on this next section after Marcello's drop in that section. We haven't seen anybody fall off on this bit on the men's section for quite a while. See how Ramon gets on it, as Salome is looking really comfortable up to this point. Brilliant work with the left toe hook there. Really tenuous position to clip in. Very easy to drop that left toe out of that hold and fall off very, very, very easily. But she's looking so composed so far and really enjoying climbing in front of her home crowd. Fires really well up with the left hand, gets it into a 4-finger sort of crimpy jug. We've seen another of the other actually just having the 3 fingers in there. Heart in the mouth move out in the left side. Really a good show of confidence if they just go for that straight away.
So Salome on top of that huge yellow volume, being a smaller climber, these compression, or the moves where your body is compressed like that, perhaps slightly easier, but moving out of it, certainly no easier. Now she's underway. They are tiny holds, and you can see how hard she was having to fight with the left hand to cross through with the right. Gets the clip done. Now the crowd comes to life. One of their own is making a pretty good dent on this Briançon route. Slaps with the left hand, look very solid on that move, controlled the swing really well. Now the right hand needs to come and join the left, on both on pretty poor holds. Slap up with the left, or will she go with the right? We saw Mathilde Becerra try to go with the right, unsuccessfully as it turned out. What's Salome's plan? She is going up with the left hand, and she's going statically and make it look relatively straightforward.
Yeah, had to dig in a little bit there. You can see how hard she was working due to how high the left foot was. Really had to pull it in hard, and now she's looking in a bit of trouble. You can see she ended up trying to match that hold to try and get something out of it to progress, but it wasn't meant to be for Salome. She really struggled in there.
So Ramone approaching the head wall. Salome Romain untying. Ashima Shireshi will be the next climber out.
Ramone into this top section then. This is where the route is really starting to divide the athletes. Number of climbers got through this section. Let's see what Ramone does now. One of the legends of the sport, into the real meat of the route, opts for the left hand, needs to go left hand again, does, but he's starting to look a little bit pumped, but he usually has quite a lot more to offer when he gets to that stage. This is where the training really kicks in, those years of experience as well.
Believe it or not, it's 3 years since he won an IFSC World Cup. Can we at least see him back in the finals? Because from there, in this men's competition, the competition is so fierce it could be anyone's. Ramone slaps out left, and it was just heading up to that volume. You could see in his movements, he just wanted to get on with it. The pump was really kicking, didn't have time perhaps to pick his spot on that left volume like he might have liked to.
Yeah, it was really the clip that slowed him down there. He was trying to match on that right hand hold where his right hand was, just trying to get something to try and speed up the clip, and by that point he'd pulled his weight right over to the right hand side, and firing back with that big move back left is all of a sudden a very, very long way. But a good effort, and good to see what was described to us as the king by the local MC. Good to see him back in the game.
still very much starting out on her World Cup journey, is this lady right there, Ashima Sharishi.
Yeah, always an incredible air of excitement as soon as Ashima pulls on, and just seeing what that amazing talent, V16 boulder at such a young age, just what she can put down on an IFSC World Cup is really exciting.
Yeah, never been beaten in an IFSC Youth World Championship in lead or bouldering.
You get to find her a kind of, she's made a lot of finals already in lead, which is extremely impressive, but not come out and just completely dominated the competitions yet.
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe had slightly unrealistic expectations that Ashima would just come and crush everyone, and that hasn't quite been the case. She's been incredibly impressive. Made as our papers begin to spray across the commentary box, the wind really picking up. I was about to say, made every final of every lead World Cup she's entered, but yet to convert that into a win. Second place in Xiamen in 2017, the best result she's had. Surely, like Alex Megos, surely only a matter of time before she claims a World Cup win.
Let's have a close look at Ashima on this move. It can sometimes potentially look like a slightly big move, but it seems like Ashima, as one of the smaller athletes, actually reached out really nicely to that bottom right hand side and really seems to have found a stride through the bottom section of this route.
Hiroto Shimizu is climbing on the men's route. So that means Thomas Johan will climb in the final tomorrow. He's our first male confirmed finalist. And Vita Lucan will climb in the final as well. She's currently top with 35 plus. I said to you earlier, Mike, Vita Lucan, 11th and 9th so far this season. She's been knocking on the door of a final, and she has made it.
Yeah, fantastic achievement, and just to start converting those good results into a final position is really well deserved, I think.
So Ashima, this move suddenly looks quite a long way for a shorter climber like her, as it did with Salome Roman, but as with Salome, very controlled. Salome, by the way, ended up with a score of 29. That's enough to leave her in 8th place. Not going to be enough, sadly.
This next
such
move,
strong climbers to come.
Yeah, this next move is going to be interesting for Ashima. She does manage to get the right foot out with not too many issues at the moment, and Ashima's all of a sudden not looking like one of the shortest climbers on the scene, with just incredible amounts of talent and power. This is the important bit now. The route really starts here for a lot of these athletes. So where we start to see the separation into this next move, and it really seems like the route just kicks in all of a sudden as soon as they make this big move up with the left hand and hit this first pair of slopers. Ashima just lining it up now, bringing the slopers into her crosshairs. Just got to build up the confidence, goes for the arm swing, a bit of a hip swing there as well to get the height, get the momentum to jump up. I've seen that with a number of athletes struggling with the left foot, put it on and then it slips off. Just have to tension up a little bit. She seems really comfortable at the moment on these slopers. This is great from Ashima. Easily done with the high left heel as well. Could be endangering a new high point here potentially from Ashima. Looking so comfortable, managing to find a rest in that section where others have really struggled. Let's hope she can convert that fitness into the next section though.
Yeah, she's used up 4 minutes of her time, and she looked like she might be in a bit of trouble when she first pulled onto the head wall and the feet cut loose and they're poor holds, and she had to try and find a way of not only getting her feet back but keeping her forearms going. She's done that and she's managed to get herself in a really strong position, but this slap up with the left is a hard move.
Yeah, you can see just all of a sudden on those open-handed holds, Ashima's just the forearm started to get pumped. You could see her looking around for sort of alternative options just before she hit the eject button. She was just searching left, searching right with her head, and looked up at the next hold, and it was quite far away. Unfortunately, we've seen another athlete fall around that 32 plus move.
Yeah, we've got quite a big tie in the women's side on 32 plus. There's 6 climbers, including Ashima, on that move. Count back to the semi-finals means that as it stands we only have 1 tie. That's between Mina Markovic and Laura Rigora. But yeah, that 32 plus move, a real stumbling block. And as it stands, Vita Lucan, who will be going to the Youth Olympic Games in October in Buenos Aires, is the only climber to progress beyond that move. So that means that Ashima will be in the final as well. 6 climbers still to come. Out next, the last French climber of the evening, Manon Illy. What a season she's having so far. 4th place in Villars. Brilliant start to the season for her, narrowly missed the finals. 10th in Chamonix. So 2 top 10 finishes, including 1 just off the podium. As we watch Hiroto Shimizu.
Yeah, really nicely built climb up to this point. He's looking in a reasonable amount of control. A bit of an issue with the clip there. It's just going to slow him down a little bit. Hiroto's looking really cool, calm and collected as he just checks the clock behind him.
We haven't seen any of the climbers really be anywhere near their time limit. They've climbed pretty fast these routes.
Interesting, wearing a pair of women's Sportiva Solutions there as well. So he's found something that fits his shoe and his foot, excuse me.
And he's going really, really well here. He's looking super solid. We saw Ramone tired slap up for that left volume. Now he's got to slap again. He goes with the left hand, not the right. And perhaps slightly frustrated with himself, going with the left hand instead of going with the right.
I don't know. I think that sequence is going to be really key later on. For we've got a few really strong guys still to come. I think we're going to see a number of them going up with the right hand and a number going up with the left hand. I don't know. I think the left-hand option looks good, but we've seen more success with the right hand so far. But we've not really seen anybody progress past that next hold that they're aiming for.
Well, I have to say, initially, you worried that the route setters might have slightly undercooked the routes, but so far it seems as if they've got it pretty spot on. We've definitely got a big blockage around that 32 plus move on the women's side of things. And on the men's, again, a couple of ties, 36 plus, 35 plus. Hiroto Shimizu, he might have been frustrated, but he'll be in the finals. 6 climbers still to go. Top 2, Thomas Johan and Hiroto Shimizu. Current top 2, so they're guaranteed their place. Manon Illy, the 6th to last climber, so Ashima Shirashi and Vita Lucan, as I mentioned earlier, know they'll be in the final tomorrow night. So here goes Domen. He'd be a popular finalist, but he's got to earn it.
I think we're going to really start to see some big fights now on the top of these 2 routes. The finals places are up for grabs. I think the finalists semi-finalists who have come out to date know that they've got to put in one of the performances of their life now to get through to the finals. I think they're going to start to see some real epic battles at the top, hopefully.
Just saw from Manon Illy, she actually just grabbed her right leg and with her right hand and just shoved it where she wanted it.
You see that quite a lot in sort of groove boulders and stuff on volumes in bouldering. Not that often you see that on the route, but that is due to the fact that they've got that massive volume in the middle of the route here. Here we go into the top section then, looking really fresh at the moment.
Yeah, the left hand lands. Now the right needs to join it. Ali Mani, we hear from the crowd. And you can see there last rays of light on the mountains here in Briançon. It's turned into a beautiful evening after some pretty poor weather earlier on, and Manon Illy is putting on a great show in front of her home crowd. Again, they come to life at the request of the MC to cheer her on. Domen Skofic, meanwhile, is climbing on the men's route on the bottom right of your screen.
This is where we lost Ashima then, and a number of the other athletes on 32 plus. What's Manon got for us? Oh, and just a foot slip. It's just a moment of hesitation, just shows the difference between on and off on these really hard routes. I feel like she's going to be really, really disappointed with that.
She is, because she was just lining up for that 32 plus move, which would have been enough to get her into the final. She'd have been tied with no less than 6 climbers, but count back to the previous rounds would have got her into the final. As it is, I don't think she'll have done enough.
Yeah, I wonder if they don't give her that 32 plus, only 32, whether she'll put in an appeal to argue that she was making progress there.
Yeah, she's got 32, not 32 plus. I have to say my initial reaction, only seeing it in real time, was that she probably deserved a 32 rather than 32 plus, but perhaps we can see it again.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Yeah, it would be good to have another look, but I think I agree with you there, but sometimes these athletes, they might put in an appeal in anyway.
Often when you see it real time as well, and especially when something unexpected happens like a slip, as we just saw from Manon Ely, you don't catch the detail, so we'll try and have another look, and hopefully the judges won't be called into action.
One of the superstars in the game then, Domin Scoffit's just working his way through this really tricky first section on the men's route. Looking cool, calm and collected, as you would expect up to this point in the route.
He's already claimed a win in Briançon in 2016, the season where he won the overall World Cup title, so he is a previous winner here, but this is a new venue for everyone, and it feels like a new World Cup. It doesn't feel like the Briançon we've been at for the past couple of years,
yeah,
coming across to the other side of town.
Because we're away from the town, like you say, but as far as I'm aware, the wall is the same. So
it is the same wall, yeah.
Yeah, so they're used to the angles, not necessarily the venue, but Domin's just starting to dig in a little bit here. You have to see him really dig in and really start to work that right toe on the right-hand side. To see him gritting his teeth just going up into that move, really great close-up. How terrible those next section holds are. Looks like he's going to go for the cross, and does, and he'll quite like that next crossing hold. Good in-cut deep crimp that he can kind of relax a little bit on before firing up into this next section of terrible sloping holds.
It's all Slovenia on the wall right now. Mia Krampel currently climbing, 5th to last climber on the women's side of things. Domin the 6th to last climber on the men's. And nice and smooth, slowly up. We've seen a lot of climbers really slap for those volumes. He'll have to slap now. He goes with the left hand, and it seems to work well for him. Heading out right. This will be enough for the place in the final for Domin, almost certainly.
Yeah, potentially 4 moves to the top now for Domin. Just looking for any foot option that will work at the moment.
Just stabs it out left. He's got those 2 more sloping holds, and that's the last clip before the top. He looks tired all of a sudden, slaps to the right hand and makes it work. This is definitely enough for a place in the final, and it's enough for a new high point, but you can see how hard Domin Scofic having to fight. He'll have to get the clip, but the energy runs out just before he can get it. I think from his body language he knows that's enough. I think that was at a possible fist pump. Either way, when he gets down he'll be pretty happy when he sees the score. So this was Manon Ely. So we said that her score of 32 was appropriate. Yeah, so she went back to a hold she'd already used.
Yeah, so that's the reason I brought it up, because you could see her head. She looked up for that next move, and I thought that might have been a movement, but as you on the replay there, she looked up, didn't commit, and then went back down to reset, and that is a heartbreaker, because that's the difference between finals and not.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance of a successful appeal there for her, so Manon Ely almost certainly going to miss out.
Just going back to Domin's effort there was 2 incredible moments on the head wall there. One was his heel hook rockover to get him up to that left hand again volume that we were talking about earlier. The way he planted his heel and rocked over to it all of a sudden gave him a resting point where others really struggled to find anything out of any of the holds. And that second slap at the top of the hold, the way he went from that left hand volume firing up with his right hand, somehow stuck to the hold. It was really impressive. Contact strength there. And Domin's looking in fine fettle, I would say, right now.
Francesco Vetterata has just made his way out onto the stage. Currently watching Mia Krampel fighting hard. She's through onto those slopers.
Mia looking really solid here. All of a sudden the women's competition's opening up, and these top moves are coming into perspective a lot more often.
Yeah, previous finalist. She was in the final in Chamonix last year. Can she make it a final in 2018 as well? Also in France. All she'll need to do, sounds easy, is at least go for the next hold. That tiny crimp on its own in the middle of the grey wall. That's the 32 plus move. If she can at least attempt the move like that, she will get 32 plus, and on count back to the previous round, that will put it into the final big tie on that 32 plus move. It's all coming down to count back.
Yeah, I mean it's a close run thing as always, but I think the route sailors will be a little bit disappointed with that big grouping around 32 plus. Bit of a shame that they're all kind of falling off on the same move. Who would want to be a route setter?
So Francesco Vetterata, 4-time World Cup finalist. He's a 5th to last climber on the men's side of things, which means that Hiroto Shimizu has guaranteed his place in the final. Just to confirm, Domin Skofic, that was 41 plus for him, so a new high point, quite comfortably. And Manon Ely is bumped down to 9th place. Sadly, it was never going to be enough. 8th with so many good climbers still to come, and just to confirm, she does miss the final.
Just the difference between the finals and not is literally half a move that doesn't even stick the hold. It's incredibly how tight these things end up being.
Hannah Schubert, bottom right of your screen there, just going through her final moments of individual observation before she starts climbing, and now she gets underway. Francesco Vetterata, he's in that green volume section in the middle of the steepest part of the Briançon wall, where we lost Jim Pope and Marcello Bombardi, his compatriot. Hannah gets underway, Team Austria. Going well here, as they always seem to. Her brother will be climbing next. On the men's route, they could actually be climbing at the same time, possibly.
Yeah, that'd be a good photo for the family album. I'm sure they've got many of them, of just that scene. Such a strong family.
Francesco's not looked amazingly settled on the route so far, I have to say. And again, just gets the rope caught behind his leg. He's still going pretty well, didn't pause for long at all on the volumes. And really, really fighting hard here. Seen a lot of climbers struggle with the section below and then regain a bit of composure here.
I think on this men's route there's a number of moves where the feet have ended up cutting off where they might not quite expect it, and that really adds an element of panic to their climbing. You can see his right arm starting to look pretty pumped, and off he goes. Yeah, like you said, Charlie just couldn't find his rhythm at the bottom of the route. Fired up, he looked like he might have regained something there, but ultimately it was too late. So disappointment there, he won't be able to make a way into a finals, unfortunately.
And Jakob Schubert comes out and he will join his sister on the wall in Briançon. Almost complete darkness here, only the silhouettes of the mountains surrounding the town visible. The old town lit up beneath them. It's a wonderful sight, it's a wonderful place for a competition, one of the truly great IFSC venues, and all the climbers here competing for one of the most sought after prizes in competition climbing, which is a win in this wonderful town.
It's Hannah Schubert is having a real issue here at the bottom of this women's route. We've seen a number of climbers actually fall off here. She's really not looking too happy with the body position. Currently can't find the right body position to push across into that volume. She's gone for a foot swap. She's got to be careful here. She needs some weight on the right foot. If she hits that next right hold, doesn't sort of feed, she could be off, and does well to regain a composure on there. Took a long time to try and figure that out.
Yeah, she was there for around 50 seconds from when I was glancing at the clock, and she's about to be joined on the wall by her brother, as I mentioned. Jakob, first and second for him so far. His results this season in the 2 lead World Cups, he's looked at his absolute best. It's now 7 years since that season when he won 7 lead World Cups in a single calendar year in 2011. He looks stronger than ever.
Yeah, stronger than ever and equally as focused as I've ever seen him. No dip in motivation whatsoever, and definitely somebody who should be heading towards the Olympics.
Yeah, we talk about all these young up-and-coming climbers. If you want to win in the Olympics in a couple of years' time, let's not forget you've got to beat Jakob Schubert first. He's going to be a serious competitor. First, though, he's got to tackle this semi-final route.
Yeah, Hannah Schubert has got a real fight on her hands here if she wants to get through to the finals. Real difficulties lower down, and she's having to fight already here on the women's route. Obviously, it's ridiculously hard down low, but she's got to get into this rest now. If she can make something, try and find something to rest up those forearms, get something back before heading into this next section, she needs to get at least 32 plus, and she's got a lot of work to do to find that.
Yeah, she's got 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Lost a lot of time, as you said, entering the head wall. And it's not just time, it's energy. Yeah, it's not the steepest section of the wall, but it's not exactly a rest either. So she needs to somehow get that foothold used and get out right. And I think she's taking a rest out of necessity. Here she goes. Jakob, meanwhile, still low down on the route, just entering the steep section of the wall.
good insight to how bad that foothold is. No wonder a number of the athletes have been struggling to kind of throw their right foot out that and let it land on their first time.
Hannah looks to have regained a bit of composure. I guess the question is how much energy is left. She's got a big, hard, committing move up now with the left hand. Suddenly looking solid again, but crosses through the right, and that one looks pretty tenuous. Hannah Schubert needs to find a way of getting her feet on here, because there's no way you can go without the feet on this move. We've seen climbers try it unsuccessfully.
Yeah, she's doing really well there to toe down on the left foot. Her foot has already slipped on that once, but she's committed to it and she's starting to shake out on it. But she's in quite a bit of trouble here in terms of the pump build-up. She's working really hard now. This is really interesting, Hannah. What has she got in the tank for this top section? And it's going to be one move at a time for her here, I think. Just try and survive the next move. Try and get that 32 plus.
You can see the 32 plus hold. It's that tiny crimp up and right, just next to the second triangular volume, and Hannah Schubert is not going to get there. Disappointing for her. I think she had the fitness, just some problems lower down where she lost the best part of a minute, and she'll be slightly frustrated, smiling as ever as she comes down. But yeah, perhaps a slightly disappointing one after a final for her last time out in Chamonix. She's in good form though. Training's gone really well over the winter. She'll be back next week in Arco, and of course the World Championships just a stone's throw from where she grew up in Innsbruck.
Well, that's why that move on the women's route is actually, it's worked out quite well for the route's perspective. It's caused a number of athletes issues, and that's not due to their fitness or their strength, but just the way that they have to read the route and get through that section has caused a number of surprises. So it's actually quite a good move from that perspective, in that it's caused a few upsets.
So here's Jakob. Mentioned it earlier, yet to finish lower than second in a World Cup in the lead side of things this year. Here's his compatriot Jessie Pilz. It's been 3 Austrians on the wall in a row. Jessie, after 10 podiums, got over the line and converted into a win in Chamonix last week. I think a lot of people really pleased to see that. Jessie's been knocking on the door of a win for a long time. Finally got there and looked fit, strong and in great form again in the qualifiers earlier today. Only just missed out on 2 tops, which would have put her level with Anak and Janja.
Yeah, her top in Chamonix was one of the best moments in recent years in lead climbing. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's absolutely amazing. Last climber out, tops the route in perfect fashion, and she looks so fit and so strong all the way up the route. Her route reading was perfect, her timing was impeccable, and it's brilliant to see her really just drop that extra gear and just come up and join kind of Janja and potentially Anak in that group as well.
Jakob beginning to look a bit fatigued. We saw his face there. Bit of a grimace.
This is where we saw Domen doing a really nice heel hook rock over just to take the weight off the right arm a bit. Domen managed to go easily up with the left hand and the left hand again. Jakob looking really pumped in his right arm, and he looks like he's going to go right hand. He does, where Domen went left.
So Jakob slaps out to the right, and that'll be enough for a place in the final. Won't be the high point.
Yeah, shakes his head. He kind of a little bit disappointed, but soon enough he'll know that that's enough for a final, and he can relax now until tomorrow night as Jessie Pilz comes through this really awkward section on the women's route. Hopefully she doesn't have the same amount of troubles as Hannah Schubert on there. A bit of chalk build up on that corner of that volume definitely won't help. That is one hold that will suffer from a bit of chalk build up. On these wooden volumes with the sort of resin finish, they can suffer a little bit from the chalk and the boot rubber.
3rd place in the provisional standings for Jakob Schubert. That's enough to guarantee him a place in the final. 3 climbers still to go. Stefano Gasolfi, winner from last week in Chamonix. Alex Megos and Romain Desgrange. This is Jessie Pilz. She's the 3rd to last climber. Anak van Hoven and Janja Garnbret still to come. I said it when she started climbing. Jessie looks absolutely in that elite of the elite group right now. Stefano Gasolfi makes his way out onto the stage in Briançon. We're at that stage of the semi-final where you're confirming finalists thick and fast. The big names are coming out one after another.
And the route setters, it's that stage in the competition where they wonder if they have hit the nail on the head and got the level just right, and maybe we can see a top. We've seen it so many times with Janja Garnbret coming through and just topping the semi-final route where other people have struggled. But like you said, the form that Jessie Pilz is in right now, potentially this could be a top for her. Interesting to have both winners from the Chamonix competition on the wall at the same time, coming out in third position.
Strange how these things happen, isn't it? We had the Schuberts on the wall at the same time. Now we've got the two winners from last week on the wall at the same time. Jessie looking so composed. We haven't really seen any errors at all. I'm just looking across at the clock. She's got 3 minutes left. She's got half her time left. Even moves like that, though, no matter how fit and strong you are, there's still a risk. She gets them done.
There's still a risk, but what she did really well there is she didn't opt to try and use the left foot to fire up to those holds. She just discounted it completely, then did the move and then went back to it to use as a foothold to rest, and that's a real show of confidence, I believe, that she just has so much power in the bag, and she just, you know, just knows when to move and when to move in the right direction with the right technique.
So she's heading up for that 32 plus move and looking completely untroubled. As Manon Ely will attest to, though, there's always foot slips that can happen. She's not done the moves yet. Vika Luskin's high point of 35 still stands. What can Jessie do? If she can at least slap for the next hole, she doesn't even have to latch it. She does latch it, and she's secured a place in the final. So that'll be 33 for her, 2 moves away from the current high point as it stands. Now we see countback coming so often, particularly in women's lead climbing. Going into the final in the lead, in inverted commas, can be so vital. And Jessie's not going to go into the final in the lead, but she will go into the final. She'll have the chance to make it another big result.
Brilliant fight there from Jessie Pills, showing her fitness once again. The crowd here, a huge shout of "wee" when she did the move. So at that point, she would have known that she's done enough, but still kept fighting. And you can see why so many climbers have fallen off that move 32 plus. It looks desperately, desperately hard, and there's no right foot. You can really see them scuttering around for a right foot. There just isn't anything there for them. You have to commit full beans out for that next hole, 33.
This is Stefano in the volumes. We lost a couple of climbers here, so don't take this section for granted. Anna Verhoeven is about to come out onto the stage on the women's route. She's the second to last climber. That means the top 6 as it stands will all be going through to the final. That's Vita Lukin, Mia Krampel, Ashima Shirayashi, Mina Markovic, Laura Gora and Nolwenn Ark.
Just watching Stefano here, we talked about going back to watch Jessie Pills' final climb in Chamonix. Go back and watch Stefano's climb. That is the way you judge 6 minutes when you're climbing on a route. Absolute perfection. He clipped the chains with 3 seconds to spare, then gave it the mega fist pump celebration. It was an absolute masterclass in how to route read and how to judge your climb and how to gauge when to rest and when to start sprinting through the hard section. Let's see if we can repeat that here today, though. Did make decent rest down low, just where his feet are now. Kind of seems to have that same mindset, though. He just seems to be judging these routes perfectly. See Stefano just making another rest, analysing what's above him. He really seems to have that ability to step back and just look at the route, maintain his focus and not kind of get into any sort of panic on the route at all. A real skill of the top end climbers. Let's hope we haven't spoken too soon, though. He's got some really, really hard moves in front of him. Still a little bit to do here for Stefano. Looking really composed up to this point, though.
He looks in good shape as well. I mean, they're not good holds at all, and his feet are still on the 50-degree overhanging section of the wall, but he's able to rest and chalk up. Feet cut loose.
Gets a bit more bouldery now, though, between the fiberglass dual texture volumes. Still looking pretty fit now. Will we see a top here in Briançon in the semi-final round? Starting to fight, he's looking at his options now. It looks like he's going to go for Domon's method. Domon went a bit higher on the volume. Stefano hit it well, but comes off in the same place as Jakob.
That'll be enough for a place in the final for Stefano. We'll just confirm when it comes through. So the route setters will be hoping this route gets topped, and there's 2 more climbers to come to try and attempt it. Anna Verhoeven, we haven't seen much of her, but she's just getting to the steepest section of the wall. 1 minute 30 used up. So we saw her get timed out last week in Chamonix, and she's choosing to rest here. I think by the time she launches onto the quite committing move out to the edge of this triangular volume on that red screw-on hold, she'll be 2 minutes in. So time certainly potentially an issue. Mike, we were chatting to Anak earlier today, and she's carrying a bit of an injury in her elbow.
Yeah, chronic tendonitis in her elbow that she...
Tendinosis.
Yeah, tendinosis, which is chronic tendonitis, basically
There we go.
a build-up of basically a deep tissue injury in the elbow. No climber wants to have that, and it's gone past the kind of tendonitis stage into basically a very serious issue for her. But she is pushing on. She's decided to compete. She's going to try and compete again in Arco and just try and manage the injury as she goes along. But it's really interesting. She just stopped us in the street earlier, and we had a really good chat about that injury and how it's affected her climbing. She said it's really sort of affecting her wrist and her forearm, and it's making her hand operate in a very strange way, but just shows her pure class. Still finished 2 tops in the qualifying round even with that injury.
Yeah, with any sort of injury, it's never just the body part concerned. It's never just your elbow, because of course your elbow is closely linked to your hand and your shoulder and every other part of your upper arm. So it's never just in isolation an injury like that. But as you say, it's not ideal, but 2 tops in a World Cup qualifying round. She's still in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's not necessarily just the physical connections as well. It's the mental game. When you have an injury, you just don't operate quite in the same way, and sometimes you climb to protect an injury. But hopefully she can just put all of that off to one side, and she can just focus on the moves and just worry about the injury later. I'm sure she's got a big selection of ice packs back at the hotel.
Stefano Ghisolfi does make the final. He's currently sitting in 4th place. The lowest he can finish the semi-final is 6th. Alex Megos is on the wall.
There's a lot of people out there in the crowd, I think, and at home, looking for Alex Megos, his first win in the World Cup. He's kind of gone from being a rock climbing hero into the competition scene, and he's an entertaining climber to watch, and I think people want to see him do really well.
See Anak just breathing quite hard, trying to get some juice back. She's got 2 minutes, a bit less, 1 minute 50 of her time remaining. I have to say, I think time again could be an issue, as it was for her in Chamonix. It sounds like quite a long time for the amount of moves involved, but when she jumps now, her feet will probably cut loose. She's got to get back on the wall, find a way of levering herself onto the head wall. It's not actually that long. It's now 1 minute 30.
Does well to commit to the campus into the second right-hand sloper there, then dials in the left foot. She looked around for foot options and did really well just to kind of push on and not worry about the feet and have that confidence to campus it. Looking really good here still. Anak, 4 minutes 47 gone on the clock already.
So she'll have enough time to do the key move, the 32 plus move. She's got to get there first, of course, but she will have time to do it. But will she have time to top the route? She's got a minute to go. First things first, get that 32 plus, and then we'll worry about how much further she can go.
Yeah, this will be a really good insight to see what level she's at compared to Jessie Pills. Jessie Pills holding the top spot at the moment, and it's this move, like Charlie said, 32 plus. The next one, there's a bad plate around the back of that volume and no right foot that she's got to fire off. She's happy in this position, but moving from it looks like it's causing her a few issues. So she's got to make the calculations now, when to go and when to rest.
She won't realise it, of course, but bearing in mind that she only needs the 32 plus to make the final, her timing's been impeccable because she's got 25 seconds left and the 32 plus move is coming up. However, if it was a top that was required, the timing would not have been quite so good. Here comes the 32 plus move, so a good attempt at this next move. We'll see her in the final. It's a very good attempt. She does the move, but she's going to be timed now again, as she was a week ago in Chamonix. 5:55 on the clock.
Not in forgetting Alex Megos in the bottom right-hand corner there as well. Action all over the wall here.
So, Anak out of time. Alex Megos not out of time. Are we going to see a top of the men's route? He slaps up with the right hand, and we lose him as he goes up with that right hand again. That's been a mover. A lot of climbers have fallen. Anak is out of time. I think the venue MCs might be telling her that.
Yeah, she's obviously completely in the zone here, or just going for it anyway.
Or just feels like topping the route and doesn't care what the MC says.
She's going to jump off. She's just umming and ahhing whether she should jump off or not there. Amazingly, she was still hanging on to the last move there with time to look around and just kind of ask the question. Easily done enough though.
Well, yes, the route looks very toppable all of a sudden. I think Anak Verhoeven, had she had a bit longer, would have actually had too many troubles topping it. She actually only nailed that crux move. She needed 32 plus, she ended up with 33. She actually only got it done with about 15 seconds to go.
Yeah, it was really, really close all of a sudden, but her method through it was incredible. She just made it look like a different move to a lot of the other athletes, moving the feet out to the right-hand side. Maybe we can have another look at that move. This is Megos at the top.
Alex Megos has moved into second place. He got a 39 plus. So Domin Skoffic's 41 plus remains a high point with only Roman de Grange to come. So this is what a 39 plus looks like.
Yeah, that was the move that Domon did so well to stick. Megos just looked a little bit short compared to Domon on that move, but yeah, ultimately it's done enough.
So the two reigning overall World Cup champions from 2017 are both about to start climbing at the same time. The rain has started pouring down here in Briançon again.
Yeah,
the wall will survive though. We haven't got long enough for the wall to soak through, so don't worry, conditions aren't going to get worse. The rain will stay off the wall. And Janja is underway and Roman is underway. The timing on this semi-final has been absolutely perfect. The climbers have had it spot on. And now we've got the last two climbers out, and they are the reigning champions from 2017. It's Roman de Grange on the right, Janja Garnbret on the left. Janja looking for a hat-trick of overall World Cup titles to potentially join the very greats of the sport.
What is the chance that we go out with a pair of tops to finish? That'll be the dream. Let's see. We've got a lot of hard climbing in front of it, and a lot of potential different places to fall off, especially in the women's route. There's just a number of really awkward sections. A couple of bottlenecks in the scores for sure, especially around that 32 plus higher up in the route. But this lower section that Janja's just about to move into has caused a number of upsets. It's Hannah Schubert, one of the favourites to get through to the finals, really struggled on this section. Let's see what Janja does then.
Yeah, I think if you were looking for hope, if you're a competitor of Janja, she didn't quite look at her best in Chamonix. Almost seemed to lose concentration a bit in the semi-final. She qualified second from the semi-final to go into the final, and then ended up in second in the final itself. So I suppose if you're looking for a ray of light, she still comes second. It's a pretty small ray of light, ray of hope, but
it's a glimpse.
Yeah, it's a glimpse of hope. But no, Jessie Pilz running Janja all the way in the most recent World Cups and winning in Chamonix. So there's, with Jane Kim missing, Jessie, Janja, Anak all gunning for it here.
Well done to the crowd for sticking around at the moment, because the rain is really coming down all of a sudden. A storm has just hit us hard here in Briançon. Everyone's running for the hills, apart from those that have the umbrellas, but the two climbers on the wall, they can just focus on the job in hand.
And you might be able to hear the wind whistling now and the rain pelting down. Conditions suddenly gone absolutely terrible for the crowd here in Briançon, but the climbers untroubled on the wall.
This is where the technical delegates really come in. They've got to keep a very close eye on the wall here, because the rain is coming down close to 45 degrees and the wind is whipping in. Everybody trying to hang on to everything they can, because it's blowing all over the place. Climbers hopefully can remain focused on the job, but the rain is getting quite close to hitting the wall now.
So Janja Garnbret entering the key section of the women's route. Roman de Grange still half a dozen or so moves off securing his place in the final. Janja
such power.
Just campusing through those moves.
We've seen people campus the previous move, the only successful climber to campus the second move as well. That is a big campus move. That is like 1-5 at least on the campus board. Incredible show of power there from Janja. Let's hope that she doesn't get distracted by this weather now and just pushes through. She's looking in incredible form at the moment. Roman de Grange on the bottom right as well, also looking in great form. Both climbers surely pushing through to the finals now. Janja's just got this next move to do. She's just got to focus on this next move.
So this next move is the 32 plus move. Make it 33. Janja Garnbret's into the final, but I wasn't watching Roman de Grange closely, but that's going to be close for him. Are we going to see a top of the route here in Briançon? She's got 2.5 minutes left. All the time in the world. Climbed very, very quickly, Janja Garnbret. She's already secured her place in the final. Almost certainly, you would imagine from here, going to bring it home. Needs to get that final clip done. There it is. So from there on, the next clip is the top of the route. The rain really pelting down here in Briançon. We haven't confirmed Romain de Grange's score just yet.
Janja Garnbret pushing towards the top hold now for an early top. That was an incredible effort considering you could see water on the volume next to her. She shakes her head, she doesn't care. She's through to another final. Romain de Grange on the stage shaking his head. He's really unimpressed with the conditions all of a sudden.
And she's through in first place, Janja, and that's what it looks like when you suddenly end up in the rain. She's getting absolutely hosed on. And some very kind IFSC volunteer from down the front runs out with an umbrella. And there's a few people using our gazebo for shelter. They're going to need to get out of the way.
Yeah, great finish to the competition here. Fantastic semi-finals, really. Big bottleneck in the women's results was a bit of a shame, but great performances nonetheless and great to watch. Men's competition really came down to that top section as well, into the top headwall. Just hoping that all of our equipment is currently surviving this massive downpour that we've had in a very exciting way to finish the competition. Well done to the camera crew out there in the rain. Just got the umbrellas up just in time to keep the pictures rolling in. And everybody is running for the hills as fast as possible.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Romain de Grange's score to come through. I have to confess, I was concentrating on Janja Garnbret. She was on the main screen and Romain was down and right, and I didn't see exactly which hole he got to. I think he's going to be pretty tight for a place in the final. Mike, quick pop quiz for you, see how well you've been listening to me when you've been watching the live streams at home for the past few weeks. Before you swapped Essex for Briançon, I'll let people at home judge whether that's an upgrade or not. Do you know how many not finals, how many podiums Janja Garnbret has missed in her entire lead World Cup career and World Championships?
Well, you put me on the spot, but I'm pretty sure it's none.
Whoa, Mike, she missed one in 2016.
Yeah, I was actually on holiday that one. I couldn't watch that one. The internet went home as well.
Yeah, she missed just the one podium, let alone finals. Yeah, let alone finals. Never missed a lead World Cup final, but only missed one podium, and she looked brilliant on the route there and lunged for the top. It'd be interesting to see that again, but touched the top hole but couldn't quite latch it. Let's have a look at the replay of Romain de Grange, see where he got to. We're just waiting for the results to come through. I think unsurprisingly this rain has put paid to some of the IFSC electronic equipment.
Yeah, he did well to get into that next section. He hadn't got the clip by that point where Dom and Jakob and a few of the others had. You can see there he slapped with his right hand. It's a complete dual texture hole, but when he came down off the wall he was blaming the conditions, but I think that's going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is enough for Romain de Grange, but we're still waiting. As I say, I don't think the judges' iPads or there's the tablets used to give the scores.
I think there's close to 1,000 people who've literally just disappeared in the click of a fingers. Everybody has disappeared out the arena. It's just the two athletes left at the front of the wall who are in possibly the driest place left in Briançon right now.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think the judges' tablets have dealt too well with this rain. It's absolutely hammering down here in Briançon. We had rain earlier, but this is now ping pong ball, golf ball sized drops of rain. They're barely dropped. It is absolutely tipping down as the DJ plays It's Raining Men. And Janja Garnbret, quite wisely I think, sheltering under the wall. Right now it's the driest place in the venue.
Yeah, you can see it there on your screen, just what has happened, but incredibly lucky in terms of the timing. Literally the last climber out any later than the competition would have had to been paused or cancelled. Just waiting for that final score to come in from Ramon before we can give you the final results and get tomorrow's finals list. Pretty sure, pretty much guaranteed that Ramon's in unless something has gone wrong with his route, if there's any technical, but pretty sure it's not going to be an issue for Ramon. And Charlie, an exciting finals as always, hopefully here in Briançon, if the weather plays ball.
Yeah, really interesting combination of climbers. No less than 4 Slovenian women out of 5 from the semi-finals through to the finals. And just looking across the men's final, Domen Skofic, Alex Megos, Tomer Johan, he's going to climb in front of his home crowd. Jakob Schubert, first and second so far this year. And it would seem that we're still waiting for the scores to come through. Well, we know Janja Garnbret's through. Now,
I'm just sorry to interrupt you, Charlie. I just think I know what's going on here. We have got one of the officials coming over, but I think there's a debate over his score, and that's not to see if he got through to the finals or not. That is to be where his score is going to be, to see what his position is going to be going into the finals. There is a technical delegate just run over to our commentary position, so Charlie will be able to give us an update on that at any moment now, as a river has just started flowing through the commentary position. Got to make sure we don't get electrocuted here.
Well, fantastic semi-final, interrupted right at the end by one of the heaviest rainstorms I think I've ever seen in the Alps. But Mike, wonderful entertainment, potentially very exciting finals tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we've got to keep one eye on the weather the whole time, but if the competition's anything to go by, both categories looking really, really tight. Jessie Pills in Chamonix last week is looking really exciting, looking really fit. Anik Verhoeven's looking extremely fit, and Janja obviously is Janja, so she's looking fit. But in the men's competition, it's wide open as always. Really, really excited for tomorrow night.
Yes, we'll be live at 7:30. Now, the forecast is for rain tomorrow. However, it's supposed to end at around 4 p.m. Apologies we couldn't bring you Romain de Grange's confirmed results. There is a discussion currently going on, and I believe there's also some electronic problems. So instead of keeping you waiting, we'll sign off. Do check the IFSC websites, and there will be confirmed results later on this evening. Mike and I will see you at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you for watching.